The story begins with Ren Shiina, a fourth-year university student who has always been obsessed with fantasy worlds filled with swords and magic. Ever since childhood, nearly every book and game he owned belonged to the genre, and he could easily spend days awake just to lose himself in a new adventure. After sacrificing his entire weekend to a newly released fantasy RPG, Ren finally reaches the ending. The completion screen congratulates him, and he wonders whether his clear time might even be the fastest in the world, despite having delayed his employment preparations just to finish the game. The game, The Legend of the Seven Heroes, follows a familiar school-based fantasies story about descendants of ancient heroes fighting those who seek to revive the Demon King. However, its second installment introduces an unprecedented development that completely changes the expected storyline. In that sequel, the hero's closest friend murders a young girl known as the Saint, plunging the kingdom into chaos. The Emperor orders the hero to subjugate his former companion, yet the story ends while leaving countless mysteries unresolved for a future installment. Curious about the unexplained friend, Ren decides to replay the game and search for hidden material. A new prompt suddenly appears, asking whether he wants to begin a special story involving the mysterious skill called Demon Sword Summoning, a power he cannot remember any character using. The moment Ren accepts the hidden scenario, his surroundings disappear. His consciousness is pulled away before he can understand what has happened, leaving him trapped in a strange, silent transition. Ren next hears adults celebrating the birth of a healthy young master. Although he cannot understand why he is being held like an infant, the people around him warmly hope that the child will grow up strong and well. Unable to move his body freely, Ren panics as he realizes he is lying in a cradle. He cannot tell whether this is reality or a dream, but the unfamiliar room and his helpless body make the situation impossible to dismiss. Ren remembers the special story prompt and begins connecting it to his current condition. As impossible as it sounds, the only explanation he can imagine is that he has transmigrated into the world of the game. The baby whose body Ren now inhabits is named Ren Ashton. Hearing the family name and the servants discussing the young master gives him the first clue about the identity he has inherited. Ren is horrified when he recognizes the name. Ren Ashton is the future best friend of the hero, and the dangerous suspect who eventually kills the saint, yet the player knew almost nothing about his true motives or background. The realization forces Ren to confront the terrifying role waiting for him. The peaceful infant before everyone else is destined to become one of the central figures behind the kingdom's future tragedy. The story formally introduces this new life, centered on Ren Ashton and the hidden events that were never explained in the original game. Years pass as Ren grows inside the Ashton household, carrying both the memories of his former life and the knowledge that his future is tied to the game's darkest mystery. 7 years after his transmigration, Ren finishes another training session with his father. His movements are far beyond what one would expect from a child, earning praise even as his father brushes off the compliment and tells him not to exaggerate. Ren lives in a remote village belonging to the military nation of Elfin. The quiet settlement and the Ashton family's modest standing are far removed from the grand stage, where the game's main story will eventually unfold. Ren remembers how fiercely he rejected reality during his first months as a baby. After spending half a year unable to do anything for himself, however, he gradually accepted his new parents and the life that had been forced upon him. There is still one secret Ren has never revealed to his family. As a transmigrator, he can see a status screen. The display gives him information about his abilities that nobody else around him appears able to perceive. Unlike the game, the status screen does not show convenient numbers for physical strength, attack, defense, or magic. More importantly, Ren discovers that he possesses Demon Sword Summoning, a skill he never encountered even after thoroughly studying the game's hidden and combined abilities. Ren concludes that Demon Sword Summoning must be a unique skill available only to a specific individual. At its current level, however, the power is extremely limited and can produce nothing more impressive than a small wooden demon sword. The wooden demon sword can slightly enhance plant growth and perform a minor magical attack, making it seem almost useless in battle. Still, Ren learns that repeatedly summoning and using it will raise his proficiency, unlock new abilities, and eventually grant access to additional demon swords such as the metal element. Every summoning consumes Ren's internal magic power. If he exhausts himself, he risks a violent headache, unconsciousness, or worse, so he resolves to train every day and steadily expand his reserves instead of recklessly forcing the skill. Because this power unquestionably connects his new world to the game, Ren knows the disastrous future may still occur. To protect himself and avoid that fate at all costs, He decides to strengthen his magic while learning everything he can about the world around him. At 7 years old, Ren begins formal sword training with his father. He is allowed to choose a practice weapon from the storeroom, and despite his father's lack of teaching experience, Ren eagerly prepares to copy the harsh method once used on the older man. Ren secretly summons the demon sword of the wood element and uses it as his practice blade. The weapon may look crude, but it allows him to train swordsmanship and his unique skill at the same time. His father orders him to keep moving until his body can no longer continue. Ren lasts less than 30 minutes during the first session, yet even that is remarkable physical endurance for a 7-year-old child. After praising Ren's first attempt, his father sends him home to recover. Ren notices that using the wooden demon sword during training has raised his proficiency, so he establishes a daily routine of magical practice in the morning and swordsmanship in the afternoon. Ren also studies demon stones, items recovered from monsters. A stone previously given to him by his father produces no reaction, proving that his skill will only accept stones from monsters he defeats himself. Unlike the original game, this world refuses to hand him easy progress. Another month passes as Ren continues his relentless training. His body and technique slowly develop through repetition rather than the convenient leveling methods he once relied upon as a player. During the next lesson, Ren's father acknowledges that his movements have improved. He warns the boy not to concentrate too much strength in one place and urges him to control his entire body more carefully. Ren insists on continuing even after reaching his limit, but his father ends the session before he can injure himself. Proud of the child's effort, he orders Ren to rest before dinner, instead of destroying his body for a little more progress. Ren calculates that his demon sword's summoning proficiency rises only a few points each day despite the severity of his training. The slow grind should frustrate him, yet his instincts as a lifelong gamer make the approaching level increase feel strangely rewarding. Ren's mother notices how intense his routine has become. She admires his love of swords, while Ren admits that the training is often harsh. Even though learning real swordsmanship continues to excite him, she explains that the Ashton family has long protected the village as knights and praises Ren's father as a courageous warrior. Ren is surprised to hear that the man who fears no monster has apparently been obsessed with swords since childhood. Ren's mother also reveals how frightened she becomes whenever her husband leaves to hunt. The monster meat and income support the village, but she cannot stop imagining the day his bravery might finally leave him badly wounded. Ren's father reassures her that he has grown more cautious and will not fall easily. More than pride or adventure, the happiness of his family now matters to him above everything else. Hearing them speak makes Ren think about the family from his previous life. His parents divorced when he was young, and he followed his mother, but the home he remembers was never as warm as the Ashton household. As the years passed, Ren and his former mother spoke less and less until she rarely returned home at all. Even so, he remains grateful that she continued supporting his education and allowed him to attend university. His father's voice brings Ren back to the present and ends the day's training. The simple promise to continue tomorrow reminds him that this new family is now the life directly in front of him. Ren pushes himself through the final repetitions and realizes how fulfilled his days have become. Compared with his lonely previous life, training, eating, and living beside people who genuinely care for him feels unexpectedly precious. After another exhausting session, Ren's father finally calls a stop for the day. Ren is visibly worn down, but the training has become such a normal part of his life that he immediately prepares himself for whatever comes next. While catching his breath, Ren checks himself for any sign of progress. At first he feels nothing unusual, and the absence of a clear change leaves him wondering whether all his effort has produced anything at all. Ren nevertheless raises his practice sword and resumes the drill. His body follows the motions he has repeated countless times, even as fatigue makes every movement heavier than before. He forces himself through another exchange, refusing to stop simply because his muscles are already screaming. The strain pushes both his body and his unique skill toward a limit he has never crossed. His father orders one final charge and tells him not to hold back. Ren gathers every remaining ounce of strength, attacks with the wooden demon sword, and commits himself completely to the motion. In that instant, Ren feels a sudden change. His speed and physical power rise sharply, allowing his body to move with strength that was impossible only moments earlier. The unexpected acceleration shocks both Ren and his father. Neither of them had anticipated such a dramatic improvement in the middle of an ordinary training session. Ren completes the movement and comes to a stop, still trying to understand the unfamiliar power now flowing through his small body. His father praises him, and realizes that Ren must be a skill bearer. Excited by the discovery, he immediately calls Ren's mother over so that she can hear what has happened. Because neither parent possesses a skill, they can only guess at the cause. They conclude that Ren's ability must have leveled up through training, while Ren's private status screen confirms that physical ability up, small, has finally activated. His parents begin imagining a brilliant future for him, even suggesting that he leave the village and make a name for himself as a knight in the capital. They wish they had enough money to visit a church and identify his skill properly, but Ren shows little interest in doing so. Ren explains that he has never heard of anyone openly possessing demon sword summoning. Revealing such a rare ability could create troublesome attention, and he sees no reason to invite that danger merely to satisfy curiosities. Rather than chasing fame, Ren says he wants to remain in the village. He dreams of hunting monsters beside his father, helping the settlement prosper, and eventually succeeding him as the family's protector. Ren adds that if disaster ever reaches the village, he wants enough strength to protect his father as well. The declaration makes clear that his training is no longer motivated only by fear of the game's future. For 7 years, Ren has been happier than he ever was in his previous life. Deep down, he knows the lonely university student he once was has disappeared, replaced by a child genuinely shaped by the love of his new parents. All Ren wants now is for the three of them to remain together and live long, peaceful lives. His father responds with rough affection, embarrassed by how openly sentimental the boy has become. Ren thinks of this life as a second playthrough, but this time his family is what he intends to cherish most. To preserve that happiness, he must prevent the future of despair connected to Ren Ashton. He believes the life ahead of him can become completely different from the one written in the game. In only a few years, however, the path he has chosen will begin drawing him toward the very events he hopes to avoid. Ren knows that somewhere in his future waits the young girl he is supposedly destined to kill. The thought hangs over his peaceful childhood, even though he has not yet met her. His attempt to change the future will eventually bring him into conflict with destiny itself. The reasons behind the game's tragedy remain hidden, waiting beyond the quiet village where he now lives. For the moment, the girl connected to that terrible future knows nothing about Ren or the role he may play in her life. Far away in the northern city of Clausel within the Leomel Empire, events begin moving on a separate path that will one day intersect with Ren's. A noble young woman watches an armored knight prepare to depart and asks where he is going. He explains that ordinary sword practice is no longer enough for him because his master has assigned a real mission in the Northwestern Territory. The knight has been ordered to patrol the region and hunt a troublesome beast. The assignment is serious enough that a warrior of his caliber has been dispatched personally. 3 years pass in Ren's village as the danger in the surrounding territory gradually grows closer. Now the eldest son of the Ashton family, Ren reviews his status. Demon sword summoning has reached level 2, granting its physical enhancement, but years of slow proficiency gains make his progress feel frustratingly stagnant. Ren reminds himself that farming work and winter preparations often interrupted his training. Even so, his current strength is already enough for the peaceful village life he desires, and he greets Grandma Rig while beginning another early morning. The elderly woman tells Ren that his father was proudly boasting about him. She assumes a talented boy like him will eventually leave for the capital and become a great knight, but Ren quietly maintains that he has no intention of abandoning the village. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of armored visitors. The strangers politely apologize for entering without warning, leaving the villagers startled by the sudden appearance of official knights. Ren recognizes that the party serves the local baron who rules the territory. Since his father is one of the village's appointed protectors, Ren suspects the knights have come because something dangerous has happened nearby. The knights confirm that several villages have already been attacked by an extremely fast beast, and some people have died. They have found no reliable trail, so they are gathering information while preparing a larger subjugation force. The monster is believed to be at least D rank under the guild's international classification system. Ren compares it to an early game boss and realizes that average knights would still struggle to defeat such a creature. Beasts in this region are normally no stronger than F rank, making the appearance deeply abnormal. The knights are recruiting from nearby settlements, but reinforcements will require roughly 20 days to arrive. Until help comes, the patrol can only strengthen security and search the forest more carefully. Ren listens closely, hoping the beast's description will match something he remembers from the game. The villagers whisper that the visiting captain is among the highest-ranked knights in the territory. His presence alone proves how seriously the Baron views the threat. The captain notices Ren and is surprised that the boy is already around 10 years old. He senses unusual potential in him and thinks that under safer circumstances, he might have tested Ren's swordsmanship. After the knights leave, Ren's father tells him not to worry about the matter. He intends to hunt the beast himself, just as he has handled dangers around the village before. Ren understands his father's confidence, but also knows why the man has recently increased the amount of prey he brings home. They begin discussing how to draw the unknown predator into the open. His father explains that little boars have delicious meat and are natural prey for stronger beasts. By reducing their numbers and studying their tracks and droppings, he hopes to predict where the dangerous creature will appear. Because the knights warned everyone away from the forest during the day, Ren's father changes his schedule. He begins entering afternoon and continues hunting until sunset, determined to find the predator before it reaches the village. Ren notices that his father has been overworking himself since the beast appeared. The adults have no time left for sword practice because they must hunt little boars, preserve the meat, and keep the village supplied while the patrol continues. Ren helps with the household work and quietly prays that nothing will happen. More than 10 peaceful years have passed in this village, and he is terrified that the unknown beast may destroy the life he has finally learned to treasure. Night falls, yet Ren's father still has not returned from the forest. As the hours pass, Ren and his mother can no longer dismiss the delay as an ordinary hunting trip. Ren's mother decides to search for her husband, but Ren refuses to let her go alone into the darkness. Though she insists the forest is too dangerous for him, he follows because he cannot endure waiting helplessly at home. For the first time in his new life, Ren walks outside at night. His mother guides him by torchlight toward the bridge leading into the forest, warning him to watch every step in the darkness. The river roars beneath the bridge that separates the village from the forest. Ren's eyes gradually adjust, but his mother makes clear that beasts roam beyond this point, and that she normally would never allow him to cross. A figure finally appears near the forest entrance. Ren's mother recognizes her husband and rushes toward him, overwhelmed with relief that they have found him alive. Her relief immediately turns to horror when she sees his condition. Ren tells her to wait while they hurry closer, and she calls desperately to her wounded husband. Ren's father is slumped against a tree, soaked in blood and barely conscious. The injuries are far beyond anything Ren expected from an ordinary hunt. Ren freezes at the sight of the man who had always seemed invincible. His father's labored breathing makes it clear that he may die, unless they can carry him home and treat him immediately. Before they can move him, Ren senses another presence in the darkness. The crisis is not over. The creatures responsible for the attack are still nearby. A huge tusked beast bursts from the forest and charges directly at the family. Its monstrous body confirms that the threat facing the village is far more violent than the little boars they normally hunt. Ren's mother throws herself between the beast and her injured husband. She is knocked down as the creature attacks, leaving Ren to watch both of his parents fall into immediate danger. More beasts emerge from the trees. Ren's mother orders him to let go and escape, but he refuses to abandon her while the pack closes in. Ren's physical ability up activates as he tears free and faces the monsters. The enhancement gives his small body enough power to move when an ordinary child would have been helpless. He summons the wooden demon sword and launches himself forward. Fear remains, but the need to protect his parents forces him to strike without hesitation. The first beast attacks and Ren blocks it at close range. He is shocked that he can withstand even one direct blow from a monster of this size. Using the opening, Ren drives the demon sword into the beast with all his strength. The wooden blade, strengthened by his skill, cuts far more effectively than its crude appearance suggests. The creature collapses after Ren's strike. Staring at the defeated monster, he realizes that years of training have made him strong enough to fight for real, not merely practice under his father's supervision. By the following morning, the wounded hunter has been carried back to the Ashton home. The family and villagers wait anxiously while treatment begins. Grandma Rig manages to stabilize Ren's father, though his condition remains unpredictable. She tells the family that the immediate danger has eased and credits Ren's help with getting the injured man home in time. The village still has roughly 10 days before reinforcements arrive. Ren understands that the unidentified monster remains somewhere in the forest while his father lies unable to protect anyone. Ren imagines the beast entering the village and attacking his mother and neighbors. Unable to accept simply waiting for help, he searches for something he can do before the situation becomes worse. Returning to the forest edge, Ren finds one of the dead little boars from the previous day. When he touches it, The demon stone inside the corpse is suddenly absorbed into his bracelet. His status confirms that absorbing a demon stone from a monster he helped defeat greatly increases the proficiency of both demon sword summoning and the wooden sword. Ren concludes that the bracelet only accepts prey he has personally hunted. Ren tells his mother that he intends to enter the forest from the next day onward. He knows the danger, but as a member of the Ashton family, he wants to assume the duty of protecting the village while his father cannot. His mother reminds him that he is still a child, yet Ren argues that reinforcements may arrive too late. He believes he is the only person currently capable of acting before another attack occurs. That night, his mother remains awake, unable to hide her fear. At last, she permits Ren to enter the forest on the condition that he always returns before sunset. She warns him never to wander beyond Tsurugi Rock, a huge blade-shaped landmark deeper in the woods. Ren also remembers that he has never properly tested the natural magic attached to his wooden demon sword. The next morning, a little boar startles him near the trail. Ren summons the wooden sword and tries to activate its plant-based magic, calling for Ivy to emerge. Vines burst from the ground and seize the boar. The unexpected success gives Ren a safe opportunity to study how the spell restrains a moving target. Because sustaining natural magic consumes power, Ren decides not to prolong the fight. He closes the distance and aims to finish the trapped beast with a single strike. Ren uses the captured boar as practical combat training. Fighting a real creature reveals timing and danger that no practice session with his father could reproduce. By repeating the hunt, Ren defeats more little boars and gradually increases the number he can handle. Each victory supplies food for the village and demon stones for his skill. On the 5th day of entering the forest, Ren has still not encountered the mysterious predator. His steady gains bring him close to unlocking the demon sword of metal, giving him a new reason to continue. A sudden call from the village interrupts Ren's routine. Someone urgently tells him to wait, signaling that his father's condition has taken another turn. Despite using valuable medicinal herbs, Ren's father has worsened since dusk and is barely clinging to life. The treatment that once stabilized him is no longer enough. Grandma Rig reveals that the household's medicinal herb supply will be completely exhausted that night. Without another remedy, there may be nothing left to stop the decline. Ren's mother remembers an old herb her husband once mentioned and searches through his belongings for information. Ren listens desperately, hoping the forgotten plant can still save his father. The herb once grew near the foot of Tsurugi Rock, but it supposedly vanished after a severe winter decades ago. Ren asks the adults to care for his father, while he considers searching for the plant himself. Ren recognizes the missing rondo grass as the same healing herb used in the game. Although the adults insist it disappeared long ago, he remembers its appearance and refuses to believe every plant is truly gone. There is no time left for hesitation. If Ren does nothing, his father will certainly die, so he leaves the house and races toward the forest despite the danger and the late hour. Ren runs through the dark woods with only one goal in mind. He pushes past exhaustion and fear, determined to reach Tsurugi Rock before his father's remaining time runs out. The enormous blade-shaped rock rises above the forest. Standing at its base, Ren understands why his mother used it as the boundary he must never cross. No rondo grass remains around the foot of the rock. Ren looks toward the upper ledges and decides to climb using the vines created by his natural magic. High on the rock face, Ren finally discovers a patch of rondo grass still growing beyond ordinary reach. The supposedly extinct medicine has survived in this isolated place. Relief turns to dread when Ren notices bones scattered nearby. He is certain the herb can save his father, but the remains prove that a predator has been feeding around this very location. Looking more closely, Ren realizes the ground is covered with far more bones than he first saw. The hidden feeding site belongs to something capable of slaughtering many animals. Among the remains are the bones of numerous little boars. Ren now understands where much of the forest's prey has been disappearing. A massive creature emerges behind him. Its presence and the accumulated carcasses reveal that Ren has walked directly into the unknown monster's territory. Ren recognizes the beast as the target from the wanted notice. The creature responsible for the attacks has finally appeared before him. The monster is a chief wolven, a unique D-rank beast far more dangerous than an ordinary wolf. Its size, intelligence, and magical ability make it a genuine boss-level enemy. The chief wolven gathers wind around its body and launches invisible cutting attacks capable of stealing anything caught in their path. Ren knows this is not an opponent he should face, but the beast blocks his escape and leaves him no safe way to run. A violent wind strikes tears across the rock. Ren survives the first assault encounters at close range, forcing his body to move through pain while searching for the single chance needed to end the fight. During the clash, Ren unlocks and summons the magic sword of metal. The newly formed blade pierces the Chief Wolven, and his bracelet absorbs the monster's demon stone as the beast finally falls. The battle leaves Ren unable to move. Clutching the rondo grass, he thinks of his father before hearing the cry of another beast and the approach of people somewhere nearby. A mounted group from Clausel reaches the area and finds the unconscious child. With no time for formal introductions, they decide to carry Ren and the item in his hand back to the village immediately. The newcomers discover that Ren is desperately holding rondo grass even while unconscious. Realizing the medicine must be important, they preserve it and hurry him home. Ren's mother embraces his injured body when the rescuers arrive. The boy has returned alive, and the herb he risked everything to obtain can finally be used on his father. News of the fight reaches Clausel. The nobles are stunned to learn that Ren Ashton, a village boy, defeated the Chief Wolven entirely on his own. 2 months later, the territory is still discussing the astonishing child who single-handedly killed a D-rank beast. Ren's existence has now attracted attention far beyond his nameless village. Ren examines the rewards of the battle. Alongside the wooden and metal swords, he has acquired the magic sword of the bandit, a strange finger armor-like weapon, with a chance to steal something from an enemy it strikes. Although still recovering, Ren meets the Clausel party that rescued him. They scold him for entering the forest alone, then admit that his survival and extraordinary physical strength surprised every one of them. The Chief Wolven's treasure and valuable materials are purchased at a generous price, while the village receives tax exemption for the year. The reward is large enough to support the settlement for decades. Ren's parents praise what he accomplished, but he insists the victory was only possible because of everything his father taught him. When offered a personal reward, he chooses a rare and beautiful Salacia pearl. Ren also asks for a bracelet so that he can openly wear the object connected to his skill without drawing suspicion. His parents remain frightened by his recklessness, yet they cannot hide their pride in what he has done. Peace finally returns to the nameless village after the long crisis. The forest becomes quiet again, and the Ashton family begins rebuilding the ordinary life Ren fought to preserve. During the calm that follows, Ren notices an unfamiliar girl near the village. Her clothes and bearing make it obvious that she is not a local child. The girl approaches and directly asks whether he is Ren Ashton. Her certainty makes Ren cautious, because he has no idea why a stranger would already know his name. Ren feels that he has seen her somewhere before. As recognition begins to surface, the narration marks their meeting as a fateful encounter. The quiet village becomes the stage where Ren's story finally begins connecting to the larger world. The girl standing before him will change the direction of his life. She repeats his name with visible relief and says she has always wanted to meet him. Ren is confused by her excitement and by the strange sense of destiny surrounding their encounter. After confirming that Ren's injuries have healed, the girl immediately announces that they should begin. Before he can ask how she knows about him, she draws him into an unexpected challenge. The stranger attacks with a practice sword, forcing Ren to defend himself. Their first meeting abruptly turns into a duel without any proper explanation. Ren blocks the rapid strikes and tries to create distance. The girl's technique is polished enough that he cannot treat the exchange as childish play. She praises Ren for handling his sword well despite falling behind at first. Ren, meanwhile, demands to know why they are suddenly fighting, and notices that even her dulled blade is being used with frightening skill. Neither child is injured, but the duel continues to intensify. Ren decides he must force an end before their reckless exchange causes a real accident. The two swords collide again in a close exchange. Ren adapts to her rhythm while the girl refuses to give him any room to disengage. Their faces come dangerously close, and Ren apologizes while trying to stop. The girl refuses to admit defeat and demands another round until an adult voice finally orders the princess to end the match. A vice commander arrives and addresses the stranger as a princess. Ren is stunned by her identity, while the officer prepares to explain why a royal girl has appeared in his village. The vice commander explains that the visitors have come as representatives of Lucia's father, Baron Clausel. They carry a formal letter praising the Ashton family's victory over the Chief Wolven and expressing great expectations for Ren's future. The girl formally introduces herself as Lucia Clausel, daughter of the Baron and the young noble known as the Saintess of White. Ren studies Lucia more carefully and is struck by her unmistakable resemblance to the famous heroine from the game. Lucia's escort reprimands her for wandering off and challenging Ren without permission. Ren, meanwhile, is horrified to realize that she is the very girl his character is supposed to kill in the future. Ren cannot understand how events have developed this way. He had planned to avoid Lucia in the game's main story entirely, yet she has appeared at his home of her own accord. Lucia is one of the game's most popular characters, admired for both her appearance and personality. Her Saintess of White skill grants great combat strength, but she cannot be romanced and only joins the protagonist under demanding conditions, earning her the title of the unconquerable heroine. Lucia admits that she personally came to evaluate the boy who defeated the Chief Wolven. Their brief duel convinced her that Ren is not only strong but courageous enough to draw his sword without hesitation. Ren had believed that living in a distant frontier village would keep him far from the Baron's daughter. Learning that Lucia traveled more than 10 days on horseback merely to meet and spar with him destroys that assumption. Ren insists that his victory depended on the injuries his father had already inflicted, and that his swordsmanship is still crude. Lucia rejects his humility and invites him to Clausel, where they could train together whenever they wished. Ren recognizes that Lucia is a hard-working girl who genuinely loves sword fighting, but he still wants as much distance from her as possible. He politely refuses, saying he has no intention of leaving the village, which Lucia immediately interprets as personal rejection. Ren hurriedly explains that he loves village life and cannot abandon his father as the settlement's only capable protector. If another beast like the Chief Wolven appeared, the village could be destroyed, so he refuses to move no matter how tempting the offer. Lucia does not accept defeat so easily. Her expression makes clear that Ren's explanation has only motivated her to find another way to change his mind. After the meal, Lucia appears ready for another workout. She has already obtained permission from Weiss and Ren's parents, leaving Ren unable to stop the new sparring session through ordinary excuses. Ren threatens simply not to pick up his sword, but Lucia says she will extend her stay until he agrees. When he asks why she is going so far, she claims she merely happens to be in the mood to exercise. Lucia finally declares that if she defeats Ren, he must accompany her to Clausel. Ren counters that if he wins, she must leave and only return to the village another time, though he realizes either result will create trouble for him. The second duel begins. Lucia charges immediately, and Ren raises his sword to meet her, rather than allowing her to control the first exchange. Ren blocks her surprise attack despite briefly lowering his guard. While their blades lock, he asks why she is so obsessed with defeating him. Lucia bluntly answers that she hates losing. As the Saintess of White, she cannot tolerate being defeated by a boy her own age. Ren points out that her title has nothing to do with their personal rivalry. Lucia explains that the skill grants exceptional sword aptitude, physical ability, and sacred magic, making defeat especially humiliating for her. Her frustration reaches its limit, and Lucia announces that she is finally getting serious. The pressure around her changes as she prepares to use the full power of her skill. Sacred magic dramatically enhances Lucia's speed and strength, making her seem like a different fighter. Ren remembers that the same holy power can heal wounds, remove curses and poison, harm undead creatures, and strengthen allies. In short, the Saintess of White combines swordsmanship, physical enhancement, healing, and support magic in a single overwhelming ability. Lucia attacks with far greater force, and Ren wonders why she did not use this power earlier. She admits Weiss normally forbids her from activating it casually, but this time she has received permission. The empowered Lucia closes the distance before Ren can settle his stance. He narrowly redirects her first serious strike. Their practiced swords collide repeatedly as Lucia presses forward. Ren is forced to rely on timing and technique rather than trying to overpower her directly. Ren adjusts to the speed of her enhanced movements and begins compensating for the difference. Each exchange teaches him more about the rhythm of sacred magic. Lucia changes angles and attacks again, but Ren refuses to retreat in a straight line. He keeps his balance while searching for the moment when her confidence creates an opening. The duel becomes a blur of crossing blades. Both children commit fully, turning what began as a challenge into a genuine contest of skill. Ren withstands another rapid combination and begins reading Lucia's next movement before she completes it. He slips through the line of her attack and positions himself for a counter, forcing Lucia to react instead of continuing her relentless offense. Lucia attempts to recover, but Ren maintains the advantage he has created and drives the exchange toward its conclusion. With one final maneuver, Ren defeats Lucia despite her sacred enhancement. The result leaves the proud Saintess unable to deny the difference created by his years of relentless training. Weiss praises Ren for overcoming both Lucia and her sacred magic at such a young age. He now understands how the boy could defeat the Chief Wolven and recognizes the enormous effort behind Ren's strength. Weiss tells Lucia that she has now witnessed Ren's ability thoroughly. He hopes the defeat will motivate her to train even harder once they return to the Clausel residence. Lucia apologizes for barging into the Ashton home and admits that the duel was valuable experience. Ren returns the courtesy, though he is relieved when she finally leaves to rest. Weiss promises to report the Ashton family's hospitality to the Baron and asks Ren to forgive Lucia's behavior. He explains that few people her age can compete with her, causing the gifted girl to become complacent. Although Weiss would have liked the children to continue training, the party must depart the following morning. Lucia had negotiated several official duties with her father, and is visiting surrounding villages to calm unrest caused by the recent monster attacks. Ren realizes that Lucia excels in military and academic studies and acts as the feudal lord's representative despite her age. Beneath her overbearing directness, she is far more responsible and sincere than a typical spoiled noble. The game said little about Lucia's childhood, so Ren never expected to meet this side of her so early. The encounter has given him information no player of the original story ever possessed. That night, Ren cannot sleep. He knows he cannot simply give up on avoiding the tragic future, but Lucia's unexpected arrival proves that staying hidden in the village may not be enough. Before departing, Lucia decides to write Ren a personal letter, in addition to her formal message of gratitude to the Ashton family. She believes paper will express her feelings more clearly than another awkward conversation. As Lucia struggles over the wording, Weiss notices that the draft looks suspiciously like a love letter. The observation leaves her flustered and uncertain about how to continue. Lucia insists that every word is sincere, including her claim that meeting Ren surpassed all her expectations. Weiss gently explains that such passionate praise sounds less like official thanks, and more like a maiden confessing her feelings. She tries to defend the letter by listing Ren's courage, valor, and gallantry. The more earnestly she praises him, however, the more romantic the message becomes. Weiss finally tells her that the letter reads like something written by a provincial girl dazzled by a hero. Embarrassed by her first attempt at personal correspondence, Lucia decides to dispose of it before leaving. Lucia's first visit ends after a spectacular duel and a chaotic farewell. Her party departs the village, carrying formal gratitude but leaving Ren with far more questions about the future. A sudden gust of wind catches the letter Lucia meant to throw away. The page is swept from her hands and carried across the countryside before anyone can recover it. Elsewhere, Ren decides to test the newly acquired magic sword of banditry. Since its effect steals a random item from a target, he chooses a harmless bird for his first experiment. The skill activates successfully and removes a feather from the bird. Ren confirms that the strange weapon can steal physical objects without necessarily injuring the target. A second object suddenly appears in Ren's possession. This time it is not another feather but a folded sheet of expensive parchment. Ren opens the page and is startled by its passionate praise. The high-quality paper, the invitation to Clausel, and the descriptions of his swordsmanship make him suspect that the message was written specifically for him. Before Ren can decide what to do with the apparent love letter, armored knights arrive at the village. Their equipment and attitude differ from Weiss's Clausel party. Ren realizes the newcomers serve another noble domain rather than Baron Clausel. Their arrival introduces a political problem far more complicated than the monster crisis. The knights ride through the settlement and begin searching for the Ashton household. Villagers watch nervously as the armed delegation advances. The visitors ask whether the village is governed by the Ashton family and demand to be led to their estate. They explain that they have come under the authority of Viscount Givens. Ren remembers that Viscount Givens outranks a baron and belongs to a family with no connection to the Ashtons. Knowing he cannot simply ignore such nobles, he agrees to guide them to his home. The Givens delegation reaches the Ashton residence, where Ren's parents and the village representatives receive them with appropriate caution. The envoy announces that Viscount Givens holds Ren's abilities in high regard and wishes to employ him at his residence. He proudly claims that his lord was the first noble to extend such an invitation. A Clausel representative objects that Ren has not accepted anyone's offer, and that the village remains under Baron Clausel's rule. Before approaching Ren directly, the Givens family should first observe the courtesy owed to the current feudal lord. The tense visitors are persuaded to withdraw for the moment. Their departure does not resolve the conflict, but it prevents an open confrontation inside the village. Afterward, Ren learns that the Givens proposal also seeks to incorporate the entire village into the Viscount's territory. The waves of a national factional struggle have somehow reached even this remote settlement. The Liamel Empire is divided among three political factions. The imperial faction reveres the nation's founder and believes the imperial family should retain primary authority. The hero faction consists of houses associated with the 7 heroes who defeated the Demon King. Viscount Givens belongs to this group, which argues for limiting imperial authority, reducing inequality, and making the empire more democratic. The third group is the neutral faction, made up of pacifists and nobles who avoid committing fully to either major side. Baron Clausel attempts to respect both camps without becoming absorbed by their conflict. Ren is told that border villages can be transferred between noble domains if everyone involved agrees. Though his village seems too small to matter, the Clausel family's influence and Lucia's status as the Saintess of White make the territory politically valuable. Ren wants no part in a world filled with conspiracies, yet he realizes the Clausel family may already have been dragged into one. He cannot determine Viscount Givens' true intentions, so he advises everyone to remain cautious. The written proposal claims that the village lacks military strength and should receive Givens knights for protection. Ren suspects the argument is based on the Chief Wolven incident. Even though that disaster was an unprecedented abnormality, Vice previously explained that a feudal lord can be punished if repeated monster damage results from inadequate defenses. Ren therefore wonders whether the recent attacks could be used to make Baron Clausel appear incapable of protecting his territory. The possibility reveals a potential strategy. Viscount Givens may be exploiting the recent disturbance to gain leverage over Baron Clausel. He could pretend to rescue the Baron, then pressure him into joining the hero faction. In the worst case, the entire crisis may have been prepared from the beginning. Ren raises an even darker suspicion that Viscount Givens might somehow be connected to the monster's release. The others find the accusation extreme, but it cannot be dismissed outright. Ren admits he has no evidence and may be overthinking the situation. Even so, a Clausel official is astonished by how quickly he reached the same possibility that had already concerned the Baron. For now, Ren's theory remains only a guess. The Clausel side agrees to report it immediately and strengthen surveillance, while Ren's mother reminds his recovering father not to overexert himself. Ren understands that his changed position may eventually force him to confront the hero factions, the very group treated as allies in the original game. As time passes, the future becomes increasingly different and dangerous. Autumn turns to winter. With Ren's help, the village completes its preparations, stores enough food, and enjoys another successful hunt before the snow settles in. The villagers continue praising Ren's ability and insist he could achieve greatness in the imperial capital. Ren refuses again, explaining that he is the Ashton heir and will not abandon his family or home. Back at the house, Ren tries to settle into an ordinary winter routine. He begins helping Rig and the others with domestic work, instead of thinking constantly about noble politics. A sudden splash of water catches him off guard. The abrupt surprise is painful enough that Ren demands to know why no one warned him. Lucia appears at the Ashton home without notice. When Ren asks why she has returned, she declares that since he refuses to come to Clausel, she will simply keep coming to him. Lucia is fascinated by a showerhead-like tool Ren has created to produce and direct water. The invention allows the household to wash without repeatedly traveling to the river or well, making daily life far more convenient. Ren explains that the household tools are powered by magic stones. Lucia reveals that the repaired device is also an apology from her father for the trouble caused by Viscount Givens, though even the Saintess of White lacks enough influence to overrule powerful nobles and factions. Lucia admits that saintesses have appeared many times in history and are respected, but they do not possess the legendary authority of the 7 heroes or the Lion King. After discussing politics, she asks Ren to take her to his father's room. Ren leads Lucia through the Ashton home to the room, where his father continues recovering from the Chief Wolven's attack. Lucia uses sacred magic on Ren's father, and is thanked for the treatment. Ren is surprised to learn that she had already healed him once before without mentioning it. The holy treatment improves his condition again in a remarkably short time. Ren can see that the remaining wounds have become noticeably less severe. With the visit complete, Lucia once again turns her attention toward Ren and their shared interest in swordsmanship. Ren points out that Lucia has been moving constantly without catching her breath. She admits that she enjoys the time they spend sparring and is willing to push herself whenever she can train with him. Beginning the next morning, Lucia and Ren resume their regular sparring sessions. Their rivalry becomes a familiar part of her stay in the village. Ren suspects Lucia genuinely intends to keep returning, which makes him wary of becoming too close to her. Winter continues while her visits repeatedly draw him nearer to the future he wants to avoid. Ren's father has nearly recovered when Givens knights appear once again. Their return immediately destroys the household's brief sense of peace. The delegation brings another invitation for Ren to join Viscount Givens. They claim the new proposal contains an opportunity too valuable for the Ashton family to reject. Viscount Givens offers to support Ren's admission into the special class at the prestigious Imperial Cadet Academy. Ordinary admission is already extremely difficult, while the special class normally accepts heirs of the 7 great nobles, descendants of heroes and generals, and exceptional children raised in the capital. As Assistant Minister of Justice, Givens has enough influence to recommend Ren directly. Ren immediately refuses and repeats that he has no intention of leaving the village. The envoy cannot understand why a child would reject a path that could make him a noble as soon as he graduates. Ren knows the academy is one of the central settings of the legend of the 7 heroes. Enrolling there would place him directly beside the game's major characters and accelerate the timeline he has spent years trying to avoid. He explains that his daily life in the village already gives him fulfillment. Although his father believes education in the capital could broaden Ren's knowledge, both parents agree that the final decision must belong to their son. The Ashton family writes a formal refusal. They also affirm generations of loyalty to House Clausel and ask that their answer be delivered to Viscount Givens. The disappointed Givens representatives leave with the written response, unable to force Ren into accepting the academy offer. Soon afterward, Lucia arrives at the village under very different circumstances. Rather than demanding another duel, she is visibly weak and must be helped into the Ashton home. Vice apologizes and explains that Lucia became ill 3 days earlier near another village on their route. The disease affects children with unusually high magical power, striking without warning. The illness is not contagious and usually grants immunity after recovery, but it causes a severe fever and weakens the body for 2 or 3 weeks. Dangerous complications can still be fatal, so Lucia must remain at rest. The immediate danger stabilizes, yet Lucia remains exhausted and bedridden. The Ashton family prepares to care for her until she is strong enough to travel. Ren visits the guest room and finds Lucia lying quietly beneath the blankets, a sharp contrast to the proud girl who normally challenges him at every opportunity. Lucia apologizes for coming to the village on her own and then becoming a burden. Ren tells her the illness is not her fault, while Vice explains that their unusually long journey was meant to demonstrate Clausel's resolve against Givens. Lucia had hoped her presence would show that the Clausel territories remained united. Falling ill before completing the mission makes her feel that she has failed both her father and the people relying on her. Unable to fulfill her duties, Lucia bitterly calls herself an annoying little brat. She fears that her weakness will damage her mother's reputation as well as her own. Lucia reveals that her mother rejoiced when she was identified as the Saintess of White and believed she would accomplish great things. Yet her mother died from illness before Lucia could remember her voice or anything beyond painted portraits. Lucia often wears one of her mother's childhood outfits because it feels like encouragement from the woman she never knew. She wanted desperately to meet everyone's expectations, but now believes her efforts have come to nothing. The confession leaves Lucia fighting back tears. Without her usual confidence, she appears simply like a lonely child carrying responsibilities far larger than herself. Ren tells her he knows she learned about his refusal of Givens's academy invitation. Lucia is moved that he and his father went so far to affirm their loyalty to Clausel, making her feel even more ashamed of acting like a spoiled child. Lucia apologizes for troubling the Ashton family despite all their kindness. Ren realizes that beneath her pride and impulsiveness, she is remarkably sincere and pure-hearted. Her honesty makes Ren uncomfortable about his own hidden motives and secrets. The girl he once viewed only as a future victim has become someone he can no longer understand through the game alone. A quiet silence settles over the guest room. Lucia and Ren look at one another, both aware that their relationship has changed after the vulnerable conversation. Lucia says she needs to write a letter later and asks to borrow stationery. Ren points out the box on the desk and explains that the guest room is actually his own bedroom, which he gave up for her recovery. Lucia worries that she has caused him nothing but trouble. Ren asks only that she bring a spare fire-lighting magic tool on a future visit, since it would be useful around the house. Ren explains that he meant her next visit, not that this must be her last. He admits he avoided her sudden demands for sparring, mainly because she kept appearing without warning and creating confusion. He offers a compromise. Lucia may spar with him inside the village as long as she gives advance notice. Satisfied by the agreement, Ren prepares to leave so she can rest without worsening her condition. Before going, Ren suggests that they have a proper conversation once she feels better. He immediately becomes embarrassed by how openly concerned his words sound. Lucia watches him leave and feels genuinely welcomed rather than rejected. Still, she decides that the full truth behind her actions and feelings can wait until a later time. Wanting to write while she still has energy, Lucia opens Ren's stationery box. Inside, she unexpectedly finds the discarded personal letter she once wrote about him and thought had vanished in the wind. Lucia reads the recovered page and instantly recognizes her own extravagant praise of Ren's valor and gallantry. Seeing it again confirms Weiss's warning that the message looks unmistakably like a love letter. Mortified, Lucia wonders where Ren found the letter and how long it has been hidden in his room. The possibility that he already read every embarrassing line leaves her unable to think clearly. She tries to reassure herself that Ren is strong, admirable, and genuinely likable. Yet those thoughts only make the contents of the letter feel even more revealing. When Ren later notices how tightly Lucius guards the paper, he asks whether it is precious to her. She becomes evasive, unwilling to explain that the page contains feelings she never intended him to see. Ren asks what went through her mind after reading the letter. Lucia struggles to answer without exposing the truth behind the personal message. As Lucia recovers, Weiss and his group help the village with hunting and repairs in gratitude for the Ashton family's hospitality. Ren joins the forest party while others visit rig or work around the house. Repair materials are stored near the bridge, and everyone divides the remaining tasks. Because Lucia appears to be recovering well, the group believes it is safe to leave her resting under guard. Before long, Lucia is strong enough to resume light training with Ren. Even while recovering, she refuses to waste an opportunity to improve her swordsmanship. During a break, Ren smells something burning beneath the scent of wet vegetation. He realizes the smoke is coming from the direction of the Ashton home. A violent blaze erupts around the house. Ren and the others sprint back as flames and smoke consume the peaceful property. They arrive to find the Ashton residence on fire. Ren immediately remembers that Lucia is still inside. A guard lies dead with his neck bitten through, proving the fire is only part of a coordinated attack. Ren shouts that Lucia remains trapped in the room. The knights left behind to protect her have all been killed. Ren suspects the attackers waited for the exact moment when the main group lowered its guard and left the house. A monstrous figure moves through the smoke and blocks the rescuers' path. The creature was clearly brought here to prevent anyone from reaching Lucia. The enemy is identified as a Mana Eater, a formidable D-rank monster capable of consuming magical power. Ren and the knights attack the Mana Eater amid the burning house. Every second spent fighting increases the danger to Lucia inside. A hooded man appears beside Lucia and orders Ren to stay away from her. The stranger already knows Ren Ashton by name, proving the kidnapping was carefully planned. Ren tries to break through, but the attacker commands his monsters to intercept him. The beast's coordinated movements reveal the man's control over them. The kidnapper releases a special incense that forces anyone who breathes it into prolonged sleep. Ren's resistance fails as the drug spreads through the smoke. His vision darkens and his body collapses. The last thing Ren sees is the attacker taking Lucia away. The beast tamer carries the unconscious saintess from the ruined property, while his controlled monsters cover their escape. Ren briefly reaches toward Lucia, but the sleeping incense overwhelms him before he can stop the abduction. Lucia awakens to Ren calling her name, and is relieved to find him beside her. He confirms that she is still breathing normally, though their surroundings are completely unfamiliar. A captor reveals that they have slept for 4 days and warns them to behave. They have been transported far from the village, and any attempt at resistance will supposedly bring immediate punishment. Ren concludes that the man is a beast tamer powerful enough to command at least 2 monsters. Charging him recklessly would endanger Lucia, so Ren hides his strength and studies the situation. Lucia's illness begins worsening again without proper treatment. Ren knows that if she remains imprisoned much longer, her weakened body may not survive. Watching Lucia struggle, Ren forces himself to remain calm. Saving her requires more than attacking the first enemy he sees. While drifting through fever and exhaustion, Lucia dreams about Ren Ashton. In the dream, Ren lacks the courage to search for Rondo grass, and his father dies after fighting the chief Wolven. The unprotected village is later attacked, costing many more lives. The dream's Ren had promised to protect everyone but failed. In the bleak aftermath, Lucia arrives with Clausel Knights and saves the surviving villagers. To the people in that ruined future, Lucia appears as nothing less than a true saintess who descended when all hope had vanished. Lucia realizes the vision resembles Ren's past as it was originally depicted in the Legend of the Seven Heroes. She wonders whether their first encounter was originally supposed to happen after the village's destruction. Although the dream is disturbing, Ren and Lucia do not appear openly hostile within it. That raises the question she cannot answer. If they once had no obvious hatred between them, why was Ren eventually destined to take Lucia's life? Something crucial must have happened before the story began. Back in captivity, Ren demands clean water and food for Lucia. The captor refuses to release his restraints and tells him to solve the problem himself. The man claims he has already provided a magic tool and herbs over the previous days. He orders Ren to use whatever power he has left instead of wasting energy shouting. Ren carefully gives Lucia water and checks her fever. Her weakness makes it clear that they cannot wait for an outside rescue. He decides to make his move that night, when the guards are less alert, and he has recovered enough strength to act. Under the cover of darkness, Ren begins working free of his restraints. He suppresses every unnecessary sound while preparing their escape. Ren summons the magic sword of metal. Its sharp edge gives him the means to cut through the chains, and finally turn his plan into action. The magic sword of metal cuts through Ren's restraints with astonishing ease. Its sharpness exceeds his expectations and gives him a clean escape without alerting the guards. Ren slips out of the cage and moves through the dark camp. He stays close to the shadows while searching for the safest route to Lucia. He reaches Lucia and frees her as quietly as possible. Because she is still weak, Ren supports her body and prepares to carry her during the escape. The two children leave the prison wagon and enter the surrounding forest. Every movement must remain silent, since the beast tamer and his monsters are camped nearby. Ren carries Lucia deeper between the trees, using the darkness to conceal their path. Their freedom remains fragile while the captors are still within pursuit distance. The beast tamer discovers the broken restraints and demands to know where Ren obtained a weapon. The alarm spreads through the camp before the children can get far enough away. Ren summons the demon sword of wood and turns to face the first pursuers. He cannot outrun every monster while carrying Lucia, so he must create an obstacle behind them. Using natural magic, Ren commands vines and roots to erupt across the forest floor. The unexpected spell tangles the pursuing beasts and slows the captors. The beast tamer refuses to let them escape and forces his monsters through the vegetation. Ren keeps moving while preparing another demon sword. Ren activates the demon sword of banditry during the pursuit. Its stealing ability gives him a chance to remove something important from the enemy, rather than winning through brute force alone. The captor shouts that Ren does not understand the meaning behind the kidnapping and demands that he listen. Ren ignores the appeal because Lucia's life is still in immediate danger. A controlled beast attacks from the side, forcing Ren to defend Lucia while continuing their retreat. The forest erupts into a chaotic running battle. Ren counters with his summoned swords and cuts through another obstacle. His goal is not to defeat every monster, only to open a path far enough from the camp. The beast tamer is driven back as Ren breaks through the encirclement. Even the captor realizes the boy's strength is far outside what their plans anticipated. The struggle spreads into the deeper forest, where wild creatures respond to the noise and scent of blood. The kidnappers can no longer control every threat around them. Ren uses the confusion to increase the distance between Lucia and the pursuers. He refuses to slow down despite the weight on his back and the exhaustion from battle. Ren realizes the beast tamer can reliably command only monsters weaker than himself. That limitations explains why the man relied on D-rank creatures and gives Ren a way to turn the forest against him. A stronger wild beast enters the conflict and attacks indiscriminately. The beast tamer's formation collapses as his controlled monsters react to the new predator. Ren slips past the fighting creatures while the kidnappers are forced to defend themselves. The unexpected clash buys the children the time they desperately need. The forest shakes with the battle behind them. Ren continues carrying Lucia without looking back, knowing that stopping now would waste the opening. Another monster lunges across the trail, but Ren cuts it aside and keeps moving. His accumulated skills allow him to protect Lucia even while nearly exhausted. By the time the beasts finish tearing through the pursuit force, Ren and Lucia have disappeared into the night. The kidnappers' carefully prepared operation ends in chaos. In the northern town of Clausel, Lucia's father, Lézard Clausel, receives the devastating report that his daughter has been kidnapped. Weiss accepts responsibility for leaving Lucia insufficiently protected and offers to take punishment in place of the fallen knights. He begs only for more time to rescue the young lady. Lézard refuses to waste time blaming him and orders immediate action. The Clausel family contacts the emperor and imperial faction nobles so the entire kingdom can be alerted. A formal report reaches the imperial government, warning that the Saintess of White has been abducted and that the incident may involve organized political enemies. At the same time, Clausel's opponents raise accusations of negligence, citing the growth of monster damage near neighboring territories as evidence of poor administration. Far from the political uproar, Ren gathers medicinal herbs for Lucia. He carefully chooses plants that can reduce her fever and support her weakened body. He treats Lucia at a temporary resting place, using the little knowledge and supplies available while keeping watch for the kidnappers. Lucia finally begins responding to the medicine. The children remain exhausted, but her condition is stable enough for them to continue traveling. Ren explains that he traded monster materials for herbs and travel supplies in a village they passed 3 days earlier. The preparations allow them to survive without revealing their identities. Lucia thanks him and asks how he knows they are traveling near Viscount Givens's territory. Ren has been reading the landscape and the information gathered from local settlements. When the Balder Mountains come into view, Ren can finally estimate their location. He recognizes the range as the site of the final boss battle in the first Legend of the Seven Heroes game. Clausel is still about 4 days away. Ren wants to ensure his family is safe, but Lucia reassures him that the Ashtons were probably sheltered elsewhere when the house was attacked. Ren decides to continue toward Clausel, greet the Baron, and confirm everyone's safety before returning home. He treats the journey as an unexpected chance to see the city he repeatedly refused to visit. The pair establish another small camp before nightfall. Ren checks their route and divides the remaining food so Lucia will have enough strength for the next day. Lucia is surprised when Ren catches a bird for dinner by trapping it with magical vines. He admits the mysterious sword supplied the natural magic but keeps the full nature of his ability secret. Among the items recovered during their escape, Ren examines a damaged magic tool. It appears to be part of the kidnapper's equipment. Lucia identifies it as a device used to soundproof the carriage. They keep it as physical evidence connecting the beast tamer to the abduction. After days of travel, Ren and Lucia finally encounter people searching the roads ahead. Their exhausting escape is about to bring them back into contact with Clausel's forces. Clausel searchers finally find Ren and Lucia on the road. The exhausted are surrounded by relieved knights who can scarcely believe they escaped captivity alone. Lucia is helped onto a horse while Ren reports the direction from which they came. The rescue party immediately reorganizes to protect them from any remaining pursuers. Vice reaches Lucia and confirms that she is alive. His relief is mixed with guilt over allowing the kidnapping to happen. The group establishes a safe resting point and treats Lucia before continuing. Ren remains beside her while the knights secure the surrounding area. Ren reminds Lucia that they can have a proper conversation once she feels better. He notices her face is still red and assumes the fever has not completely disappeared. Lucia insists that the fever is already gone. Her flushed face comes from embarrassment rather than illness, though she cannot explain that honestly. The awkward exchange makes Lucia think again about the letter she found in Ren's room. She decides she can no longer ignore the subject. Lucia accuses Ren of hiding something from her. Ren immediately becomes nervous, convinced she may have discovered the secret behind his demon swords. She asks why he kept the object inside a box, and whether he was treasuring it. Ren has no idea what she means until she angrily refers to the thing in his room. The misunderstanding turns toward Ren's collection of empty magic stones. His mother explains that he keeps them because they look beautiful and jokes that his father had the same strange obsession when he was young. Lucia comments that storing so many monster stones in a bedroom is an unusual hobby from a girl's perspective. Ren is relieved that she is not questioning the true nature of his bracelet, yet Lucia's thoughts remain fixed on the letter she saw at first glance. Its existence has stayed in her mind ever since. Neither of them knows how to continue the conversation. Their silence becomes increasingly uncomfortable, as each worries about a completely different secret. Ren finally asks what Lucia is really talking about. She becomes frustrated that he still does not understand, and feels it is unfair for him to act so innocent. Lucia tries to speak indirectly, saying it may be strange to hold on to something merely out of curiosity. Ren assumes she is still referring to monster remains, and thinks they make her uncomfortable. When Ren asks again, Lucia loses her nerve and tells him to do whatever he wants. She is embarrassed by how impossible it feels to discuss the letter without confessing its meaning. The tension lingers between them even after the topic is dropped. Lucia's irritation and Ren's confusion leave both children avoiding each other's eyes. As the group prepares to move again, Lucia gathers enough courage to make one smaller request. She tells Ren to stop addressing her only by title, and to call her by her name. Ren is left wondering what the sudden demand was supposed to mean. Lucia has already turned away before he can ask. On the road, the party encounters travelers who have run out of medicinal herbs. Ren shares what he can, relieved that the stranger's problem is not immediately dangerous. When asked about their destination, the travelers explain that continuing straight will lead to Clausel. They also mention that the city is unusually active and that adventurers are gathering there. The reason is disturbing. Rumors claim Baron Clausel will soon be punished. Everyone expects major political upheaval in the northern city. According to the circulating story, Baron Clausel deliberately sent monsters into Viscount Givens's territory. The accusation presents him as the instigator of the recent attacks. Ren and Lucia immediately reject the rumor as an obvious fabrication. They know the Baron would never unleash monsters against civilians. Even from an outsider's perspective, the accusation makes little sense. The timing is too convenient for the faction seeking to take control of Clausel lands. The party finally reaches the northern city of Clausel, where political tension hangs over every street. Inside the city, officials and nobles prepare for the coming legal confrontation. The accusations have already begun dividing supporters and enemies of House Clausel. Members of the opposing faction celebrate that their long-awaited moment has arrived. If they seize Clausel territory, the hero faction's influence will expand dramatically. Their plan is not limited to winning a dispute. They intend to use the case as an example of the power their faction can exercise over neutral nobles. They speak of raising their side from decline and restoring the authority they believe it deserves. The conspirators openly declare that House Clausel must be brought down for their strategy to succeed. The imperial authorities announce that the arguments will be reviewed under imperial law. A preliminary decision is expected the following morning. If the first appeal fails, the case will move toward a formal imperial trial within days. The Clausel family must prepare both a legal defense and a request for goodwill from potential allies. The opposing side appears unnaturally confident, as though victory has already been guaranteed. Clausel supporters expect interference once the proceedings begin. Lucia senses that the methods being used are too forceful even for a higher-ranking noble. She begins questioning whether this is truly only a factional dispute. If the case continues along its current path, Baron Clausel will be falsely condemned and the entire family may fall. Lucia desperately wonders how she can save everyone. The high-ranking neutral nobles cannot be trusted to intervene, leaving Lucisa feeling powerless as a child. Instead of surrendering, she searches for any action still available to her. Ren offers to help and suggests they speak more casually, allowing Lucia to call him simply Len while he uses her name. They decide to leave for Clausel again as soon as dawn breaks and testify about the kidnapping. Testimony alone may not be enough. Ren concludes that they need concrete evidence linking Lucia's abduction and the monster attacks to Viscount Givens. Ren and Lucia continue toward Clausel through the northern countryside. The city's distant walls finally become visible beyond the forested hills. They leave the main road to avoid attention and travel along a rougher path. The detour is slower, but it reduces the chance of encountering anyone connected to the kidnapping. Ren says they are almost there. Once they cross the forest and climb the final hill, Clausel should be visible, and Lucia expects friendly knights to be patrolling nearby. The children press through the trees, exhausted but encouraged by the knowledge that safety appears close. Lucia begins relaxing for the first time since the escape. Reaching Clausel territory should mean the end of their isolation. An armored man suddenly identifies himself as a knight of Viscount Givens. He claims Baron Clausel requested that his group search for Lucia, but the timing immediately makes Ren suspicious. Ren and Lucia exchange a cautious look. Neither is willing to trust the knight, simply because he invokes the Baron's name. The man offers to escort them to a secure location. His polite words sound reasonable, yet his insistence feels too practiced. Ren quietly asks Lucia to leave the situation to him, even if his choice places them in danger. She accepts because she understands he has noticed something important. Ren tests the knight with questions about the search and the Baron's instructions. The answers fail to match what he knows about Clausel's response. A familiar object catches Ren's attention among the knight's equipment. He recognizes the same kind of magical device used by the kidnappers. Ren directly asks whether the man recognizes the soundproofing device recovered from the carriage. The knight's eyebrows twitch despite his denial, confirming that the evidence has struck a nerve. Ren explains that the Merchant Guild can trace unusual magical tools by identifying the craftsmen, merchants, and previous owners connected to them. The device is not a common product circulating openly in the market. Because Ren knows influential guild members can investigate it, he argues that someone will eventually reveal where it came from. If the tool was stolen, that can be established. If it was deliberately supplied to the kidnappers, the person who gave it to them will have to answer in imperial court. Ren adds that anyone who knowingly provided the device effectively assisted the kidnapping. Lucia agrees that the object could become decisive evidence. The Givens Knight suddenly insists that the evidence is too important to remain with children and demands that they entrust it to him. Ren refuses. The kidnapping occurred inside Clausel territory, so a given servant has no legitimate authority to confiscate the evidence. The knight abandons his polite mask and mocks Clausel's protectors for failing Lucia. Ren ends the discussion rather than allowing the man to pressure them further. Lucia says they are already close to the city and do not need his protection. More importantly, she refuses to trust anyone except Ren with the device. The knight blocks their path and declares that they must accompany him. The supposed rescue has finally become an open detention. Ren tells Lucia to run while he faces the armed men. The fragile pretense of cooperation collapses. The Givens Knights draw their weapons and attack. Ren summons a demon sword, determined to create enough space for Lucia to escape. One attacker shouts that Ren has laid hands on Givens servants and threatens political consequences. Ren ignores the accusation and knocks the man aside. The fight spreads across the narrow forest road. Ren uses his enhanced strength to break through the line without killing the knights. Lucia reinforces herself with sacred magic and joins the escape. Together, the children force the surrounding soldiers back. The attackers regroup and attempt to close the path again. Ren and Lucia keep moving, rather than becoming trapped in a prolonged battle. Ren summons the demon sword of wood and sends vines across the road. The barrier entangles several pursuers and prevents them from immediately following. One Givens Knight manages to break away, shouting that he must report to the Viscount. Ren realizes the enemy will soon know the children survived. The remaining soldiers receive orders to capture them alive. Ren and Lucia sprint into the forest before the group can reorganize. Mounted pursuers quickly pick up their trail. The children run across uneven ground while arrows and shouted commands follow behind them. Ren cannot shake the riders and urges Lucia to hold on a little longer. If they can cross the next hill, they should be close enough for Clausel forces to notice the disturbance. The chase continues beneath the trees, with the pursuing knights gradually closing the distance. At the top of the route, the original beast tamer steps out to block them. He had predicted the path they would take and waited for their arrival. Ren attacks before the man can command his monsters. The beast tamer answers by unleashing the creatures hidden around the road. Controlled beasts pour from the forest and surround the children. The ambush was prepared to prevent a second escape. Ren notices one monster using a sword capable of starting fires. As flames spread through the brush, even more beasts charge toward them. Lucia and Ren fight back-to-back amid the burning trees. Sacred magic, demon swords, and monster attacks collide in every direction. The beast tamer tells them they have chosen the worst possible moment to resist. He offers one final chance to surrender peacefully, already knowing they will refuse. When they reject him, the man declares that he will use force, and if capture proves impossible, he will kill them both rather than allow the evidence to reach Clausel. Ren and Lucia launch a coordinated attack through the surrounding monsters. Their blades cross in front of the beast tamer as they try to reach the man controlling the battlefield. The enemy counters with another wave of beasts, forcing the children apart. Ren blocks one creature while Lucia cuts down another from the opposite side. A massive impact tears through the forest and throws debris into the air. The ambush becomes a full-scale battle with no open route left behind them. Ren recognizes the hopeless position. They cannot escape while the beast tamer remains conscious and commanding the monsters. Defeating him is now their only path forward. A huge beast charges from the smoke. Lucia and Ren split to opposite sides, narrowly avoiding the creature's crushing attack. Ren summons the demon sword of metal and meets the monster head-on. The sharpened blade gives him enough power to cut through its armored hide. The beast tamer watches Ren's weapon with growing interest. Ren realizes the man is studying his demon swords rather than merely trying to recapture them. Ren releases a powerful sword strike whose pressure travels far beyond the blade. Even the enemy is impressed that a child can send an attack across such a distance. Lucia uses sacred magic to protect Ren from the counterattack. Her strengthened body and flowing white power let her intercept a blow that would have reached him. Ren is forced backward by another monster, but he immediately recovers his stance. Lucia's support keeps the enemy from overwhelming him. From the center of the battlefield, the beast tamer issues new commands and changes the monster's formation. He intends to exhaust the children before approaching personally. Lucia recognizes one of the controlled creatures and calls out its name, Yerkwal. The sight reveals that the kidnappers have enslaved monsters with unusual abilities. The beast tamer releases a sealed creature driven by madness. Its appearance changes the balance of the fight and fills the surrounding monsters with fear. The newly released beast attacks, without distinguishing between allies and enemies. Ren and Lucia dodge as it tears through everything in its path. The creature declares that its pain is enough to drive it into despair, and opens its enormous mouth to swallow its target whole. The beast tamer sacrifices part of his own body to maintain control, yet even losing an arm is not enough to satisfy the creature's resentment. The seal begins breaking down completely. Ren attacks the rampaging monster before it can reach Lucia. His demon sword pierces its exposed body, but the creature continues moving. The enemy absorbs the punishment and turns toward Ren. Its distorted forms makes it difficult to identify where a decisive strike should land. The beast tamer laughs and calls this only the beginning of his expensive offering. He is prepared to sacrifice more lives and monsters to complete his objective. Another violent collision shakes the ground. Ren is thrown through the debris, while Lucia struggles to maintain her sacred reinforcement. A suffocating power spreads across the battlefield, making it difficult for both children to breathe. The monsters are consuming the surrounding magical energy. Ren forces himself upright and strikes at the nearest creature. He cannot allow the draining field to continue weakening Lucia. A grotesque monster twists toward him and gathers another mass of stolen mana. Its body swells as it feeds on the power released during the battle. Ren and Lucia attack together before the creature can finish changing. Their combined strike cuts into it, but the transformation is already underway. The surrounding trees wither as their magical energy is absorbed. Ren realizes the entire forest is being used as fuel. The mutated beast leaps from the collapsing vegetation and attacks with a larger, faster body. Ren is caught by the sudden charge and driven across the ground. He manages to protect his vital areas, but the impact leaves him badly shaken. Lucia rushes in and cuts the monster away from Ren. Her sacred blade opens a wound that finally makes the creature recoil. The Mana Eater has evolved into a B-rank monster after devouring so much power. Its new strength surpasses every enemy Ren has fought before. The transformed creature towers over the children and unleashes a roar that shakes the battlefield. Ren and Lucia refuse to retreat. They attack from different directions, forcing the Mana Eater to divide its attention. The monster sweeps its claws through their assault. Both children are knocked aside, but they avoid a direct killing blow. The beast tamer approaches while the Mana Eater stands over the fallen pair. He coldly reveals that this is what killing truly looks like, and orders the final attack. Lucia uses the last of her strength to activate a hidden sacred technique. A brilliant light forms around her as she prepares her final spell. The effort leaves Lucia collapsed beside Ren. She quietly thanks him, believing they may have reached the end of their escape. Lucia thanks Ren for always protecting her, even though she repeatedly acted selfishly and pulled him into danger. Ren tells her not to speak as though he plans to abandon her. Lucia lies exhausted on the ground while the monster closes in. Her fading consciousness remains fixed on Ren beside her. When the Mana Eater's claw descends, Ren throws himself over Lucia and blocks it. He refuses to let the final strike touch her. Ren declares that he would never dream of leaving Lucia behind. Whatever the game once said about their future, he has chosen to protect the girl in front of him. The Mana Eater raises another enormous claw and attacks again. Ren faces the blow directly, still shielding Lucia with his own body. Ren meets the Mana Eater's claw with his demon sword. The impact bends his body backward, but he keeps the blade between the monster and Lucia. The creature attacks again from above. Ren braces both hands against the weapon and refuses to surrender the ground protecting her. Lucia screams his name as the monster's strength drives him lower. Ren's arms tremble, yet he continues holding the claw away from her. The Mana Eater slams its full weight down. The ground cracks beneath Ren while the enormous beast tries to crush both children at once. The monster pulls back for another charge. Ren uses the brief opening to shift Lucia farther from the immediate line of attack. He counters with a desperate slash across the creature's front. The cut forces it to recoil, though it is not enough to stop the transformed beast. Lucia remains too weak to stand and can only watch Ren continue fighting alone. The Mana Eater circles back toward them. Ren reaches for every remaining source of power. His bracelet reacts to the overwhelming magical energy surrounding Lucia and the monster. A completely new demon sword begins forming in Ren's hand. Even in the middle of the crisis, he is stunned that another weapon has awakened. Light pours from the unfinished blade as it takes shape. The power is unlike the wood, metal, or banditry swords he has used before. Ren decides that the weapon's nature does not matter, as long as it can protect Lucia. He pours every remaining trace of strength into the summoning. Raising the new sword overhead, Ren declares that he will do whatever it takes. The blade answers his determination, with an explosion of radiance. The gathered light expands around Ren and Lucia, pushing the Mana-Eater back before it can complete its next strike. The monster tries to absorb the magical energy, but the new sword releases more power than its swollen body can contain. A spiraling torrent of light engulfs the Mana-Eater. Ren directs the attack upward to keep the blast away from Lucia. The creature's body begins breaking apart inside the pillar of energy. Its stolen mana erupts uncontrollably as the attack overwhelms it. The blast climbs above the forest and becomes visible across the surrounding territory. Trees bend beneath the pressure radiating from the battlefield. The Mana-Eater disappears inside the light, and the Beast Tamer's remaining monsters are swept away by the expanding shockwave. Ren continues holding the sword until he is certain the enemy can no longer recover. The weapon consumes nearly all the power left in his body. At last the column of light fades. Ren stares at the transformed battlefield, unable to understand the full extent of the power he has just released. The attack leaves an enormous crater carved into the forest. Nothing remains of the B-rank Mana-Eater at its center. The brutal battle finally ends, leaving Ren and Lucia alive amid the devastation and closing the chapter on their escape from the kidnappers. Days later, citizens awaken to news that Baron Clausel is already being transferred to the imperial capital. Many suspect the trial was only for show, and that Viscount Givens used his former influence in the Justice Ministry to control the result. The northern city reacts with fear and confusion as Clausel's ruler is taken away. Soldiers fill the streets while rumors spread faster than official explanations. Some residents reassure themselves that imperial faction nobles in the capital will handle the appeal once the transfer is complete. Others worry that the opposing side has already arranged every remaining step. Questions also arise about Viscount Givens's obsession with Ren Ashton. Although Ren appears to be only the son of a country knight, certain nobles insist he is valuable enough to manipulate alongside Lucia Clausel. A Givens insider hints at information discovered by chance some time earlier. According to him, the Ashton family may possess a hidden connection capable of raising them among the descendants of the heroes. He refuses to reveal the full truth yet, saying others will understand when the time comes. He also speaks privately about the strange light seen in the forest at dusk, and whatever happened to Yerquil. Viscount Givens orders knights sent at dusk to capture the survivors and investigate the battlefield. He warns that failure will not be forgiven, because the situation is already difficult enough against the imperial faction. Armed units begin moving through the countryside, under secret orders. The Viscount's men intend to control both the evidence and anyone who witnessed the battle. Clausel's own forces also search the region, following reports of the enormous magical blast. Both factions are now converging on the same area. The battlefield remains quiet beneath the damaged forest. Ren and Lucia lie hidden among the wreckage while search parties draw closer. Ren regains consciousness and is relieved that both of them are still alive. He tells Lucia they can fill in the missing details later once they reach safety. A Clausel supporter says he does not want Ren's efforts to be wasted and recognizes the approaching noble as Viscount Givens. Ren addresses the Viscount directly, but Givens objects to the boy's tone and demands the manners supposedly owed to a noble rather than a criminal suspect. Ren answers that the accusation is interesting, coming from a man whose own actions are under suspicion. Givens tries to turn the insult back on Ren and his family. Lucia remains visibly exhausted but forces herself to stay conscious. Everyone can see that simply standing and speaking is the most she can currently manage. Despite her condition, Lucia presents the recovered magical tool and asks investigators to examine its relationship to the elf employed by Givens. She states that the same elf attacked her, and Ren then asks why a servant hired by the Viscount appeared at the kidnapping site. Givens mocks the idea that a single magic tool proves anything and calls their testimony a deception. Ren counters that an investigation will expose the truth, especially because Givens' knights also attacked them in the nearby forest. Ren points out that the knight who attacked him outside the forest was acting under Viscount Givens' orders. The accusation places the Viscount's own command structure directly at the center of the case. Givens argues that Lucia may have been deceived and proposes moving the discussion to his town for a more thorough inquiry. Lucia immediately refuses, saying that such a transfer will not be necessary. Vice urges everyone to weigh Lucia's testimony carefully, while Givens insists that any judgment should be moved to the imperial capital. He hopes a new venue will give him room to escape the pressure. Ren suddenly orders the suspicious knight to show his hands. The demand catches the man off guard, and he angrily asks who Ren thinks he is speaking to. The knight hesitates under everyone's gaze. His tense reaction makes it clear that Ren has noticed something he desperately wants to hide. As the standoff sharpens, the surrounding knights prepare to intervene. Ren refuses to back down, keeping everyone's attention fixed on the man's concealed hands. Ren explains that the back of the knight's hand should bear scars left by the fight in the forest. Those marks would connect him directly to Len and the attack. The knight claims Ren is mistaken and says he was working elsewhere at the time. Ren repeats the command, forcing him to reveal his hand instead of hiding behind excuses. With no convincing way out, the man is compelled to expose his hand. The courtroom watches closely as the physical evidence finally comes into view. The revealed wounds are still visible despite treatment. Ren remarks that the man apparently lacked potions strong enough to erase the damage completely. An examiner confirms that the injuries are sword wounds mixed with pale burns caused by holy magic. Even expensive medicine cannot immediately remove traces left by that kind of power. Givens tries to regain control by laughing and calling for a new investigative committee to prove his knight's innocence. His theatrical confidence now sounds more desperate than convincing. He argues that imperial law requires Baron Clausel's transfer and insists everything should be clarified in the capital. The legal wording is another attempt to delay the judgment already forming against him. Before the argument can continue, an unexpected figure enters and declares that the entertainment is over. Every noble in the chamber turns toward the newcomer. The stranger advances without showing any fear of Givens or his supporters. His arrival instantly changes the balance of the hearing. Clausel's side watches in surprise. As the man walks into the center of the proceedings, even the Viscount cannot immediately identify who has intervened. The newcomer surveys the room with calm authority. His timing suggests that he has been observing the entire confrontation and has come prepared to end it. He praises the courage and dignity Ren and Lucia displayed, calling their struggle a beautiful story worthy of admiration. Givens demands to know who he is. The man introduces himself as Edgar, then respectfully tells Lucia to leave the remaining matter to him. His confidence reveals that he represents someone far more powerful than the Viscount expected. Edgar says he has no intention of trampling on the case Ren and Lucia built. Acting under his master's command, he offers to help Clausel conclude the matter, though he refuses to reveal that master's name. He apologizes for withholding his identity, but his composure shows that the secrecy is deliberate. The nobles realize that he does not need to announce his patron to command respect. A brief silence falls over the chamber as Givens studies Edgar. The Viscount understands that an unseen political force has entered the trial against him. Edgar remarks that Givens already understands the danger without hearing the name. When the Viscount accuses him of plotting, Edgar reminds him that conspiring against a noble crest is itself a capital offense. He reveals that imperial court officials authorized him to speak and act freely in his master's name. Because too many points in Clausel's trial remain inexplicable, he formally proposes a retrial. Edgar explains that his master owes Ren Ashton and the Clausel family a profound debt for numerous favors. Whenever a crisis like this arises, he has been ordered to see it through to the end. He confirms that he was instructed to lend them every necessary hand until the case is settled. Givens can no longer dismiss him as an uninvolved outsider. Lucia wonders why this powerful patron has suddenly moved now and worries that Ren should not be dragged further into political danger. The intervention seems far larger than either of them expected. Edgar answers that the miracle Ren and Lucia accomplished allowed his master to act without hesitation. Ren Ashton, he explains, saved someone's life in a way that created this debt. The Viscount realizes that he has been completely outmaneuvered. The confident expression he wore at the beginning of the hearing finally collapses. The case shifts decisively in Clausel's favor, and the tension that held the chamber begins to break. Ren's long struggle has produced an ally capable of forcing the truth into the open. After the confrontation, Ren's injured body finally gives out. The exhausting battle, magical strain, and courtroom pressure send him into a deep sleep. When Ren wakes, he learns that he has been unconscious for more than a month since arriving in Clausel territory. The lost time leaves him stunned. Lucia tells him he does not need to rise and offers to care for him at her home until his wounds heal. She is deeply grateful because his actions secured the retrial on the very day of the hearing. Ren learns that Clausel's position has stabilized while he slept. The evidence, witnesses, and Edgar's intervention prevented Givens from burying the truth. Lucia explains that her father is safe, and the false charges are being reconsidered. For the first time since the kidnapping, she can speak without the fear that her family will be destroyed. Ren is relieved, but his body remains too weak for him to leave immediately. Lucia insists that recovery must come before any attempt to return home. The Clausel household gives Ren a quiet room and treats him as an honored guest. After everything he endured, The peaceful atmosphere feels almost unreal. As his strength slowly returns, Ren begins walking around the estate. The unfamiliar mansion becomes the setting for a calmer chapter of his life with Lucia. Lucia visits often and keeps him company during his recovery. Their conversations gradually shift away from danger and toward ordinary concerns they never had time to discuss before. Ren reflects on how dramatically his relationship with Lucia has changed. She is no longer merely a heroine from the game, but someone whose trust and life are now closely tied to his own. While Ren recuperates, Clausel's servants continue bringing reports about the retrial. The political storm is not completely over, but the immediate threat has passed. Lucia remains attentive to every sign of pain or fatigue. Her concern makes Ren realize is how much his injury frightened her, even though she tries to hide it behind composure. Ren thanks her for looking after him, but Lucia insists that her care cannot compare with what he did for her. Neither of them knows how to express the full weight of that gratitude. Their awkward exchange softens into a quiet moment. The distance between noble lady and village knight's son has almost disappeared. As Ren becomes mobile again, he starts thinking about returning to the village. The thought brings relief, but it also means leaving Lucia behind. Lucia is visibly unsettled when he mentions going home. She knows he cannot remain in Clausel forever, yet she is not ready for their time together to end. Ren reassures her that leaving does not mean cutting their connection. Even so, both understand that distance and noble responsibilities will make future meetings difficult. The conversation turns to the strange blue object Ren has kept since the incident. Its hard surface and magical presence continue to puzzle everyone who examines it. Ren studies the object again, remembering that no ordinary blade could scratch it. Whatever lies within possesses power far beyond a simple gemstone. Lucia asks whether it has changed while he was unconscious. Ren confirms that it looks the same, although he still feels an immense magical force sealed inside. They consider asking scholars or court magicians to identify it. Ren hesitates because handing such an unknown treasure to strangers could create another political problem. For now, he decides to keep the object close and observe it himself. Its connection to the monsters and the game's hidden lore remains unresolved. Ren's recovery continues through a series of peaceful days. He trains lightly, rests when ordered, and spends more time with Lucia than he ever expected. Lucia shows him parts of Clausel's estate and introduces him to the routines of noble life. Ren quietly compares everything with the locations he remembers from the game. The more they talk, the more Lucia treats Ren as an equal rather than a retainer. Their friendship grows naturally through small conversations and shared meals. Ren also learns how much pressure Lucia carries as Clausel's saintess and heir. Her calm public image hides constant expectations from the family and the territory. He encourages her not to shoulder every burden alone. Lucia smiles at the advice, knowing that Ren himself is the worst example of following it. Their teasing eases the solemn mood. For a moment, both can behave like ordinary children instead of figures trapped inside noble conflict. As the date of Ren's departure approaches, Lucia becomes increasingly reluctant to discuss it. Ren notices, but he cannot abandon his parents and village indefinitely. Lucia asks him to promise that they will meet again. Ren agrees without hesitation, even though neither knows when circumstances will allow it. The promise gives Lucia some comfort, but she still looks dissatisfied. A simple future meeting feels too uncertain after everything they survived together. Ren also feels the weight of leaving, yet he reminds himself that returning home is the right decision. His parents have already spent weeks waiting for news. That night, Ren remains awake thinking about the strange path his new life has taken. His attempt to avoid the game's central story has instead drawn him closer to its most important people. The blue pearl-like object absorbs Ren's magic whenever he touches it. A rare item description identifies it as an egg with an indestructible shell and an enormous power sleeping inside. According to the game's hidden information, the egg may hatch if it receives tremendous magical energy and the horn of a great dragon. The creature born from it would supposedly pledge absolute loyalty to its master. Late at night, Lucia finds Ren examining the mysterious jewel again. She asks whether she may interrupt and jokes that he is always staring at it. Ren explains that his parents brought it with his clothes after Chief Wolven recovered it. Since it is almost impossible to destroy and may be useful, he prefers keeping it rather than selling it, though he is preparing to leave Clausel soon. Lucia abruptly asks how many more times they will be able to meet. Ren guesses that even 1,000 meetings should be possible, trying to make the separation sound less serious. She points out that following his current plan, reaching 1,000 meetings could take nearly 3 years. Her father has allowed Ren to stay in the room, so she asks him to remain a little longer. Ren gives in and agrees to stay for a while. Lucia's relieved reaction makes it clear that the request mattered far more to her than she admitted. Their meetings become part of daily life, and they occasionally go shopping together. Lucia is delighted when Ren uses his allowance to buy her something, though he warns her not to wear it every single day. During one outing, they hear that Imperial Knights have arrived in Clausel to inspect Lucia's swordsmanship. Lucia invites Ren along, explaining that their famous leader uses the holy sword technique. Ren recalls that knights study not only basic swordsmanship but specialized schools that suit them. Mastering a school allows warriors to activate combat skills by spending magic, though merely copying the movements should not be enough. They discuss several ranks of sword technique, from the broadly useful holy sword style to the elite sword saint and the nearly legendary sword king. Weiss offers to teach Ren imperial swordsmanship during their next meeting. Ren asks whether Weiss ever considered learning a more specialized school, such as the great sword technique. Weiss explains that such styles demand innate talent and have extremely few practitioners. Memories of the game make Ren uneasy, because great sword users were brutally strong and could inflict lasting status damage. Weiss cheerfully invites him to learn together despite Ren's reluctance. The Imperial Knight commander arrives after hearing about Ren from Lucicia. He asks the boy to join them and says he wants to see the promising talent recognized by both the Saintess and Weiss. They begin with a light sparring match. Ren takes his position and prepares to demonstrate only enough skill to satisfy the commander's curiosity. The swords clash as the commander tests Ren's timing, footwork, and defense. Ren instinctively responds with movements drawn from the techniques he remembers from the game. The commander tells Ren to fight more like himself. Ren realizes he unconsciously imitated the holy sword style from his gaming memories. Even though true sword techniques should not be activated through mimicry alone, the spar continues at high speed, with Ren trying to adjust his movements after the commander's warning. Their blades meet again before either side gives ground. Ren changes his stance and attacks more directly. The commander responds smoothly, testing whether the boy can abandon borrowed forms and rely on his own instincts. Ren is astonished by how far the exchange has gone. He never expected a casual demonstration to become a serious examination of his swordsmanship. He attempts to break through the commander's guard, but every strike is stopped. Ren cannot understand how the man continues defending against attacks that should have forced an opening. After the match, the commander finally introduces himself and asks Ren's name. He then bluntly says the holy sword technique does not suit Ren, prompting Lucia to protest that Ren is strong. The commander explains strength is not the issue. Ren's aggressive temperament and habits from his father's training may conflict with the style so badly that forcing it could hinder his future growth. Weiss accepts the assessment and asks whether Ren can at least receive guidance in basic sword use. The commander gladly agrees, though Lucia remains upset that fierceness alone supposedly disqualifies him from holy sword training. The commander says crossing swords with Ren revealed talent for a different school. Later, Lucia fidgets with her hair, and Ren realizes she is still grumpy about the verdict. Lucia insists she is not angry, but her reaction proves otherwise. She hates hearing the judgment reduced to the claim that Ren lacks talent, even though ending the unsuitable training early saves him time. Ren tells her not to worry and to focus on her own practice. He admits that he studied the commander's tactics so intensely in the game that he unconsciously reproduced some of the same habits. Although the commander says Ren's habits can still be corrected, Ren dislikes the idea that his entire goal must be reshaped. Part of him refuses to accept that the path he imagined is simply wrong. Lucia reminds him that many other sword schools exist, and one may suit him better. She asks whether he could casually discard the techniques taught by his father, merely because someone called them unnecessary. Ren answers that his situation is different from Lucia's. He is only a country knight's son, free of noble obligations, and his father always encouraged him to choose his own path and become the person he admired. He argues that correcting deeply rooted habits may waste years when another school could produce greater growth from the beginning. Looking at Lucia, he also reminds himself that she is now a real person, not just a game character. Lucia agrees to help search for a style that suits Ren perfectly. Their discussion ends with both determined to find a sword path that belongs to him, rather than forcing him into an unsuitable mold. Elsewhere, a frail young noblewoman begins another exhausting rehabilitation session. Her trembling body reveals how long illness has kept her confined. The girl collapses during practice but refuses to stop, saying she has fallen behind her peers and must work many times harder. Her attendant urges her to call it a day before she is injured. She explains that spending so long in bed left her unable to walk by herself. Even so, she begs for a little more time and promises to stop before pushing herself into real danger. Her goal is simple. Someday she wants to stand on her own feet before the boy who freed her from a life of constant pain and thank him properly. After the session, her family praises her progress. The girl Fiona feels embarrassed being called splendid when she can still only walk with support. A letter arrives from the Imperial Military Academy. Fiona realizes it contains the results of the preliminary examination she took the previous month. Her father celebrates when she learns that she passed. He admits he never truly believed she would fail after seeing how hard she studied. Fiona's attendant points out that she continued studying even from bed. Fiona is relieved, though the final practical exam still worries her far more than the written results. They encourage her to keep improving carefully. Becoming injured before she can thank Ren Ashton would make all her effort meaningless. Back in Clausel, Lazard asks what Ren wants to do with his future. Remaining as a knight in the territory until Lucia becomes head of the family is one possible path. Ren admits he longs to live with his family again, but fears his presence could bring another noble threat to the village. He wonders whether returning would endanger everyone he wants to protect. Lazard has heard about Gibbons's obsession and shares Roy's concern that monsters are easier to defend against than hostile nobles. Roy therefore suggested that Ren become a knight at Clausel Mansion. Though he promised to respect Ren's decision, Lazard advises Ren not to rush. He can live peacefully in Clausel until the village is rebuilt, and if Ren wishes to solve future problems with his own strength, he must become someone even great nobles cannot casually crush. Ren notes that surpassing high nobility sounds nearly impossible unless one marries into the imperial family. Lazard clarifies that he means gaining authority through the sword. He speaks of the 5 sword kings, the strongest swordsmen alive. They act according to their own will, and even those who reside in the capital do so by choice rather than obedience to any nation. Ren remembers that one sword king in the game remained almost unbeatable even at maximum level. Lazard promises to support Ren's living expenses and suggests continuing to train under Weiss while staying near Lucia. Ren appreciates the offer but refuses to remain idle. When he asks for useful work, Lazard proposes something similar to the monster subjugation duties Ren performed in the village. The job requires inspecting local monster populations, writing periodic reports, and eliminating dangerous creatures when necessary. Lazard also wants better information before any outbreak can threaten the territory. Ren may accept Adventurers Guild requests whenever his patrols take him beyond town. He soon arrives at the guild hall, wondering whether he has found the correct building. The busy interior draws attention to the unfamiliar young visitor. A rough adventurer warns his companion not to stare so rudely at Ren. Ren asks to register and confirms that Lazard already gave permission. The receptionist is surprised by his familiarity with the process, but Ren assures her he can read, write, and understand the explanations. He already knows the rank-up conditions and the limits on replacing a lost guild card from books. Ren then studies the guild's information on monsters living around Clausel. The territory is relatively safe, with few strong creatures and even D-rank monsters appearing rarely. Nearby adventurers recognize Ren as the young hero involved in the Viscount's downfall. They praise the way he stood against Gibbons. Ren is uncomfortable with the attention, but their respect makes it easier for him to ask about local hunting grounds. The adventurers warn him about a steel-eating gargoyle. It normally avoids people and is left alone, but provoking it produces a counterattack worthy of its D rank. Because gargoyles consume metals and minerals, exceptional individuals sometimes appear. The adventurers advise Ren to consult Lazard and perhaps obtain a better sword before challenging one. Ren checks his status and discovers Demon Sword summoning has reached level 3. He can now summon 2 swords at once while his available weapons retain their separate effects. He accepts a simple F-rank request first, choosing to test his improved ability against weaker monsters instead of immediately hunting the gargoyle. Ren summons both the Iron Demon Sword and the Wooden Demon Sword simultaneously. Holding one in each hand confirms that the new level functions exactly as described. The dual sword combination feels unexpectedly convenient. Ren experiments with switching attacks and begins imagining how 2 different magical properties can cover each other's weaknesses. After safely completing several hunts, Ren wonders whether repeated use raise the skill or whether hidden conditions remain. He doubts the system will let him increase it forever through easy battles alone. The guild staff are astonished by the amount of material he brings back and ask whether he truly intends to sell everything. Ren is equally surprised by how successful his first outing became. He submits 2 E-rank earthworm corpses after removing their magic stones and asks for a proper appraisal. The haul earns him far more than an ordinary beginner's request. Ren compares the reward with a commoner's typical daily wage and realizes he made a substantial sum in one day. At a shop, the clerk recognizes him as Lucia's companion from an earlier visit. Lucia panics when she learns Ren is moving out of the guest room and repeatedly asks where he is going. Ren explains that he is not leaving the territory, only trying to stop relying on her household so completely. He remains in Ashton serving Lucia, but Lazard entrusted him with managing the old mansion. Since occupying the guest room forever would be improper, Ren plans to live there instead. Lucia scolds him for not telling her sooner, because she thought he was returning to the village. Their argument is interrupted when Yuno delivers a package addressed to Ren. Ren presents the package to Lucia and asks her to accept it. Her surprise leaves her momentarily unable to respond. Inside is a carefully chosen gift from the shop they visited together. Ren watches anxiously, unsure whether his choice matches her tastes. He explains that he bought it with the first money he earned himself. That makes the gift less extravagant than a noble purchase but far more personal. Lucia hesitates, and Ren nervously says he can return it if she dislikes it. His concern makes her more flustered. She quickly stops him from taking it back. The intensity of her reaction reveals that she values the gift, even if she cannot yet say so calmly. Ren wonders whether she truly likes it and apologizes for offering only a single present. Lucia struggles to organize her emotions. She blurts out that the problem is not the gift. Everything happened too quickly, and she simply had no time to prepare her heart for such a meaningful gesture. Ren suddenly remembers Cronoa, the world's greatest wizard from the legend of the Seven Heroes. In the original story, she followed Lucia Clausel into the central conflict. The memory turns grim because Cronoa was also killed by Len Ashton. Ren realizes another powerful future enemy may eventually connect his name to tragedy. Cronoa is now headmaster of the Imperial Military Academy, and a figure comparable to the Sword Kings. Since the game never explained how Len defeated her, Ren decides to keep his distance from the academy whenever possible. The next morning, people at the Adventurers Guild greet Ren as their young hero. He enters with renewed energy, ready to take another patrol request. Before he can choose a job, Ren notices an unfamiliar woman eating alone. Her appearance is difficult to read beneath her hood, but she seems interested in him. The woman invites him to sit and offers to buy him breakfast. Her casual friendliness feels unusual for someone he has never met. Ren politely says he has enough money, but the crowded room leaves few open seats. He agrees to share the table while quietly trying to see her face beneath the hood. She jokes that he seems mature for his age, while Ren notices her voice sounds artificially processed by a magic tool. She claims she approached simply because he looked like a cute, hungry child. When Ren asks what she really thought after speaking with him, she cheerfully answers that she is considering exactly how to kidnap him. She laughs and calls it a joke, then invites him to the Imperial capital because their conversation was entertaining. Ren refuses immediately and asks whether she came from the capital herself. The woman confirms she traveled a long way on personal business. Before leaving, she says she hopes they meet again and hints that the next encounter may present a special opportunity. At the door, she promises that next time she will teach Ren about the strange power he possesses. The remark freezes him in place. Ren realizes she means demon sword summoning, a secret he has never told anyone. Before he can question her, nearby adventurers ask whether he is also heading to the Eastern Forest. A group explains that younger adventurers plan to enter deeper woods, so the guild asked veterans to hunt nearby as backup. They invite Ren along, but he declines because Lazard entrusted him with a separate inspection job. They promise to exchange hunting advice another time and depart. Ren remains preoccupied, wondering who the mysterious hooded woman could possibly be. Ren enters the Eastern Forest alone and begins the assigned inspection. The quiet trail gives him time to test his heightened senses and search for unusual monster activity. The work proceeds smoothly, and Ren expects to earn a good reward. Since Lazard allowed him to use the money freely, he considers buying magic tools and sending gifts back to his family. A sudden scream echoes through the trees. Ren immediately recognizes that someone nearby is in serious danger and changes direction. He races toward the sound, pushing through the undergrowth. Another desperate cry confirms that the attack is still underway. Ren finds adventurers being overwhelmed by a monster far tougher than expected. One victim complains that its body is too hard to damage and asks why such a creature appeared here. The beast lunges again as the group calls out to one another. Ren closes the distance before another adventurer can be struck down. He intercepts the attack with a summoned blade. The impact reveals the monster's enormous weight and the durability of its armored body. Ren fights at close range, cutting and parrying while the injured adventurers retreat. Even his sharpest strikes struggle to penetrate the creature. The monster's metal-covered frame withstands another attack. Ren realizes ordinary swordplay will not be enough to stop it quickly. He identifies the enemy as a steel-eating gargoyle, exactly the D-rank creature mentioned at the guild. Its armor has been strengthened by the minerals it consumed. Ren asks whether everyone is alive, and learns that the gargoyle should have been far from colossal. According to the bulletin, he orders the adventurers to evacuate while he stays behind to buy time. The gargoyle charges Ren, forcing him to block with both demon swords. The ground tears beneath them as its raw strength drives him backward. Ren clicks his tongue when the monster's exterior resists his counterattack, exactly as warned. Its defense is even more troublesome than the guild report suggested. He changes angles and attacks from the side, searching for joints or gaps in the armor. The gargoyle twists with surprising speed and prevents a clean hit. Ren notes that its strength is far beyond monsters of the same class. He begins to suspect this is a special individual, rather than the ordinary gargoyle listed on the board. The fight tears through the forest as Ren repeatedly avoids crushing blows. He cannot let the beast chase the retreating adventurers. Using both swords together, Ren launches a coordinated assault. One blade distracts the monster while the other targets a vulnerable seam. The gargoyle still refuses to fall. Its armored body absorbs the attack and immediately swings back with enough force to splinter the surrounding trees. A second gargoyle suddenly appears, turning the battle into a 2-on-1 fight. Ren is stunned because the guild report mentioned only a single creature. He confirms that 2 monsters are now attacking despite the bulletin's information. The unexpected pair explains why the earlier adventurers were overwhelmed so quickly. Ren is caught between their alternating charges. He narrowly slips past one strike while the other closes off his escape route. The injured party urges him to flee, but Ren knows the gargoyles will pursue them if he withdraws. He decides he must do something before anyone else is killed. Ren refuses to abandon people to monsters he has the power to confront. He steadies his breathing and calls on Demon Sword's summoning again. Magic gathers around his hands as the 2 gargoyles advance. Ren searches his skill for a weapon capable of breaking their mineral armor. A new blade begins to form from the accumulated magical power. Its shape and aura differ from every demon sword Ren has summoned before. Ren stares at the unfamiliar weapon and realizes Demon Sword summoning has produced a completely new sword. Its power may be the answer to the twin gargoyles. Ren raises the newly summoned weapon as the gargoyles close in. A broad magical barrier forms before him and absorbs the first crushing impact. The shield-like sword holds against an attack that would have shattered ordinary steel. Ren uses the opening to reposition himself between the 2 monsters. He identifies the new weapon as the Demon Sword of Shields. Unlike his offensive blades, its power creates a sturdy defensive wall. Ren blocks another simultaneous assault and finally stops being driven backward. The new sword gives him enough stability to begin a counterattack. He uses the shield to redirect one gargoyle's charge into the other. Their armored bodies collide, disrupting the rhythm of the 2-on-1 assault. Ren follows with his offensive demon sword, while the monsters are off balance. The combined defense and attack finally break through their protection. The surviving adventurers stare in disbelief as both gargoyles collapse. Taking down even one should have been beyond a young F-rank adventurer. They confirm that the fallen monsters are steel-eating gargoyles, and are even more shocked that there were 2. Ren's victory looks impossible by normal guild standards. When the guild's rescuers arrive, Ren gives the other adventurers credit for surviving and helping. They insist he defeated the monsters himself, so the entire reward should belong to him. Ren reviews the Demon Sword of Shields, noting that it consumes large amounts of magic but is simple and effective. The gargoyles also gave extraordinary experience, raising both his summoning skill and the new sword's proficiency. Walking back toward Clausel, Ren wonders whether he has genuinely become stronger. The rapid growth is encouraging, but it also raises more questions about the skill's hidden rules. Lucia sees his injuries the moment he returns, and demands to know where they came from. Ren realizes he will not be able to dismiss the incident casually. After examining him, Lucia is relieved that the wounds are shallow. Ren admits he expected her to become angry. Instead, Lucia says many people were saved because of his courage, and that he should be proud. She considered scolding him only because Lazard's investigation request led him into such dangerous opponents. Her expression softens as she admits the real reason for her reaction. She was worried about him. Ren has no easy answer to such direct concern. Lucia invites him to dinner at the main residence and asks whether she can do anything to make up for the worry. She mentions an upcoming village tour, similar to the one that once brought her to Ren's home. When Lucia asks Ren to accompany her, he accepts. Their next journey through Clausel territory is decided with a simple exchange. A report from knights guarding villages near the Baldur Mountains warns that the coming winter may be colder than usual. Clausel begins preparing extra firewood and heating magic tools. Lazard asks Weiss about the gargoyles. Evidence suggests hungry monsters flew into Clausel after adventurers carelessly mined resources from their former underground habitat. Weiss also reflects on Ren's sword talent. Although holy sword technique did not suit him, Ren's effort and explosive growth may indicate an aptitude for the powerful strong sword technique instead. A few days after the gargoyle subjugation, Ren joins Lucia's expedition to inspect villages across Clausel territory. The journey gives him both work and more time beside her. During a rest, Lucia notices that Ren's horse has grown attached to him. Ren thinks the animal may simply have been treated poorly before and never felt much loyalty toward its former master, Yerkwu. Weiss explains that the horse carries monster blood and is still young, so it may grow much larger. Such horses remain in their prime longer and can live beside their riders for many years. Lucia tells Ren to give the horse a proper name. Weiss is glad Ren will remain in Clausel and mentions that he may now attend Lucia's upcoming birthday celebration. Ren suddenly remembers that Lucia's birthday falls in summer. He thanks Weiss for the warning and decides to choose a meaningful present as soon as they return. The expedition receives a formal welcome at the next village. Lucia and the knights begin their inspection while Ren observes local conditions. Lucia reviews the route on a map and notes that the next village lies closer to the Baldur Mountains. Ren is uneasy, although Marquis Ignart has not yet begun the disaster he remembers from the game. Ren recalls that the mountains once held only weak monsters until Ignart used a legendary demon stone to turn the region into a danger zone. The stone belonged to the red dragon Asval. Asval was an ancient dragon that lived in the mountains for centuries, understood human speech, possessed immense pride, and constantly sought strong opponents. The Demon King's influence drove Asval mad, and the 7 heroes eventually killed it. Its body fell into a volcano and melted into the mountain, leaving no bones behind. One thing survived, Asval's demon stone buried deep inside. Ignart later used its power to strengthen every monster in the Baldur Mountains for his war against the Liamel Empire. Even though Ren knows the future has changed, the mountains still remind him of the route where his homeland and Fiona were lost in the original story. He cannot look at them without unease. A village representative reports that the river level has fallen because storm-felled trees block the upstream flow. The villagers cannot move the heavy trunks themselves. Ren volunteers to handle the obstruction so the knights can continue their many duties. The villagers worry about sending him alone, but Weiss trusts his ability. Weiss reassures them by introducing Ren as the young hero everyone has heard about. The villagers apologize for doubting him, leaving Ren embarrassed by the exaggerated reputation. Ren reaches the blocked section of river and studies the tangled trunks. The obstruction is larger than expected, but clearing it should still be possible with his demon swords. He climbs above the blockage and decides to work from the top. A carefully placed strike begins breaking apart the heaviest trunk. Ren cuts through more of the debris and shifts the logs away from the river channel. Water begins forcing its way through the reopened gaps. The current suddenly surges as the obstruction gives way. Ren is caught too close to the rushing water and loses his footing. He emerges soaked after the river sweeps over him. Before he can dry himself, the mysterious hooded woman from the guild appears again. She scolds Ren for standing around in wet clothes and warns that he may catch a cold. Ren insists he was working rather than playing in the river. With a casual spell, the woman cleans and dries his clothing instantly. She proudly calls it cleaning magic, though Ren suspects the technique is being used in a far more advanced way than normal. Ren realizes the game never explained everyday magic such as this, and wonders how much of the world's system he still does not know. When he asks why she is here, she claims to have a serious job despite her suspicious appearance. A group of small boars appears near the damaged riverbank. Their hunger suggests the recent storm also destroyed their normal feeding grounds. The woman steps in front of Ren when the boars approach. He is confused because her posture clearly suggests that she intends to protect him. Ren asks why she is shielding him when he can fight. She answers simply that protecting him is exactly what she intends to do. She unleashes magic before Ren can intervene. The spell engulfs the charging boars in a brilliant burst. The attack ends the threat almost instantly. Ren watches the overwhelming power, with growing suspicion about the woman's true identity. She smiles and says Ren really is the heroic boy described in the rumors. Her casual praise does little to answer any of his questions. The woman murmurs that Ren is cute, then offers to explain herself if he accompanies her to the capital. Ren refuses again without hesitation. She admits the tedious assignment became enjoyable because of him, but says she must leave for the Baldur Mountains immediately. She promises they will meet again. Ren tries to stop her because he still has questions. The woman disappears before he can finish calling after her. Not only does she vanish, she takes the fallen trees Ren was supposed to remove. Ren wonders who can wield so many kinds of magic and even mask her natural voice. A troubling possibility enters Ren's mind, though he rejects the idea that such a famous person would appear here. The woman's identity remains an unsettling mystery. Several days after returning, the Clausel household begins storing the many gifts arriving for Lucia's birthday. Ren helps move them into the old building. While working, Ren notices preparations spreading through the estate. The scale of a noble birthday celebration is far beyond anything in his village life. He becomes conscious that his own presence still lacks something special. Seeing the expensive gifts around him makes his simple plan feel inadequate. Lucia unexpectedly catches him looking troubled, and Ren hurriedly says he has something to handle before leaving. Once alone, he focuses on finding a better birthday gift. Ren considers accessories, because he already bought Lucia clothing. He worries that giving something too similar or too personal might make the moment awkward. A book mentions the platinum feather, a rare silver-white tail feather from a white hawk. It has no magical effect but is prized for its brilliant beauty. An adventurer notices Ren's concern and asks whether he can help. When Ren names the platinum feather, the man explains that obtaining one requires exceptional luck. White hawks are powerful, but their special feathers lose their brilliance when the bird dies or uses magic to flee. Killing one therefore produces only ordinary feathers. The platinum feather takes years to regrow and can only be collected after falling naturally. Ordering one from a capital merchant may take longer than the time remaining before Lucia's birthday. Fortunately, the adventurer knows a route where a flock passes through the eastern forest before noon. He marks the location on Ren's map. Ren returns to the estate exhausted after his preparations. Lucia notices his condition and asks whether he is all right. Lucia assumes he overworked himself during holy magic training, but Ren insists she does not need to worry. He keeps the real reason secret so the birthday surprise will remain intact. The next morning, Ren reaches the marked section of forest and searches for the White Hawk's route. He chooses a hidden observation point. He settles behind natural cover and waits where he can see the tall tree described by the adventurer. The location should allow him to approach without disturbing the flock. Ren uses smell-erasing perfume to hide his presence and identifies the tree with red berries favored by white hawks. Rather than waiting for a feather to fall, he plans to knock one unconscious while its magic remains stable. He rejects any plan that would create unnecessary noise or alert the rest of the flock. A clean, precise strike is essential. The white hawks finally arrive and settle around the berry tree. Ren waits until one separates slightly from the others. He remembers encountering many of these birds in the game, but the real hunt gives him no room for careless retries. The feather must also remain undamaged for processing. Ren prepares a controlled attack and tells himself that if this plan fails, he will need an entirely different gift. He aims at the chosen hawk. The strike lands before the bird can use its escape magic. Ren rushes forward to secure it without harming the prized tail feather. He successfully obtains a shining platinum feather. The difficult hunt leaves him relieved that his birthday plan can continue. A few weeks later, the day of Lucia's celebration arrives. Ren dresses in formal clothes he never imagined he would have a reason to wear. The servants praise how well the outfit suits him and say his dignity resembles the legendary hero Ruin. Ren thanks them while feeling unlike his usual self. Ren enters the decorated hall and sees Lucia prepared for the ceremony. Her formal appearance briefly leaves him speechless. Lucia turns toward him in her birthday dress. Both hesitate, suddenly more aware of each other than of the crowded room. Ren finally tells Lucia that the dress suits her perfectly. The simple compliment makes the carefully composed noblewoman visibly happy. The celebration begins with attendants and guests gathering around Lucia. Ren waits nervously for the formal order of gift presentations. A servant explains that the butler presents a gift for the household staff, followed by the knight's representative, and finally the head of the family. Ren realizes his turn will come after all of them. They say it is fitting for a young gentleman's personal gift to follow those given by Lucia's retainers. Ren's stomach churns as everyone teases him for acting like a real noble youth. The knights present Lucia with a full set of training equipment from a respected capital shop. She receives it with genuine delight. Lazard steps forward and wishes his daughter a happy birthday. The room quiets for the family heads present. Lucia thanks her father, then realizes the order has been altered. Ren understands Lazard deliberately moved ahead because he knows Ren has a gift waiting. With no reason to delay further, Ren is called forward. He can no longer hide behind the ceremony's formal sequence. Ren wishes Lucia a happy birthday, and says he hopes she likes what he prepared. His nervousness is obvious despite his practiced words. Lucia accepts the small case and carefully opens it. The brilliant ornament inside catches the light. Before seeing it fully, Lucia says she would be happy with anything as long as it came from Ren. She is already grateful for the thought itself. Ren reveals the crafted accessory set with the platinum feather. Its silver brilliance immediately distinguishes it from the other presents. Lucia stares in stunned silence, recognizing how rare the material is. The room also reacts to the unexpected treasure. Ren explains that he wanted to give her something unique rather than merely expensive. The personal effort behind the gift becomes clear. Lucia's composure breaks as emotion overwhelms her. She holds the present close, unable to answer at first. She finally declares that she feels as though she might die from happiness. Ren is alarmed by the dramatic wording. Ren says he does not want her to die and wonders whether he should have chosen something else. Lucia fiercely refuses to return the gift and insists she will never give it back. The household then serves the feast prepared for the celebration. Weiss marvels at the platinum feather, saying one can rarely be found even by searching the entire imperial capital. Ren calls it luck and claims he simply found it in the forest. Privately, he remembers the considerable effort required to capture a white hawk without ruining the feather. After the meal, Lucia quietly asks Ren to spare her a little time alone. Her request makes him nervous about what she intends to say. Ren follows Lucia away from the crowded hall. The birthday celebration continues behind them as the two enter a more private setting. Lucia says spending her birthday this way feels like a dream. Ren admits that obtaining his present took time, but he chose it because he thought it suited her better than anything else. Lucia reveals that she also prepared something for Ren. She fumbles with the box until Ren, unable to bear the suspense, tells her simply to open it. Inside lies a short sword. Ren realizes it may be intended to replace the weapon Lucia once lent him, and that he later lost during the fighting. Lucia explains that the blade is a magic tool rather than ordinary metal. It can absorb magical energy, and she poured her holy power into it so cuts made by the sword may carry an effect similar to her magic. She says she worked hard to fill the weapon because she believed it would become useful to Ren someday. The effort clearly exhausted her. Ren notices how tired Lucia looks, and understands that she spent far more energy on his gift than she should have. Lucia confirms that she continued supplying magic until that very day. Ren accepts the sword and thanks her sincerely. Ren asks why Lucia is giving him a present on her own birthday. She says she wanted to celebrate his spring birthday too, since Yurku's attack prevented her from doing anything at the time, and she refused to wait another year. Lucia says she simply felt that today was the right moment. Ren laughs at her earnest explanation, prompting her to demand why he finds it amusing. They realize that both spent an unreasonable amount of effort preparing gifts for the other. In that sense, they each did their best for the same day. Ren remarks that they are surprisingly alike. The observation brings a warm quiet to their private celebration. Lucia holds the short sword while Ren keeps the platinum feather gift in view. The two treasures now symbolize how deeply their lives have become connected. Lucia hesitates before asking Ren another question. Her expression reveals that the subject is more serious than birthday presents. She asks whether he truly plans to remain in Clausel, since he used to say repeatedly that he would return home. Ren explains that his immediate plans have changed. Lucia decides to trust his promise and tells him she will take his word for it. Their birthday ends with a renewed assurance that Ren will not suddenly disappear from her life. Several months later, a single guest arrives at Marquis Ignart's residence in Oibeheim, a large city far from Clausel. Her visit signals movement among the world's most powerful figures. The Marquis cautiously asks about his mysterious visitor's purpose. The woman apologizes for appearing without openly announcing herself. She says the fault is hers because she chose to hide her identity. The staff withdraw as she prepares to reveal who has entered the estate. Marquis Ulysses Ignart is visibly shocked when he recognizes the guest. Few people could surprise a man of his position so completely. The visitor is Kronoa Niegland, headmaster of the Imperial Military Academy and the world's greatest wizard. Ulysses respectfully welcomes a woman considered equal to the Sword Kings. Kronoa asks Edgar to join them and has tea and sweets prepared. The informal request contrasts with the immense authority both visitors carry. Ulysses asks what brought her away from the capital so suddenly. Cronoa teasingly refuses to reveal every detail and calls part of the reason a secret. She quickly reaches her real purpose. Cronoa wants to hear the story of Ren Ashton. The direct request catches Ulysses off guard. He asks why she is searching for information about Ren. Cronoa notes the Ashton and Clausel family's recent connection and makes clear that her interest is personal. Ulysses recalls that when Fiona was sick, Clausel was the family that helped save her. He therefore wants to understand why Cronoa now seeks the boy involved in that miracle. Cronoa assures him she is not plotting anything and promises to explain. She remembers how good it felt when Ren protected her in Clausel, a sensation she had experienced only with her father before. Ulysses asks Edgar to recount what happened in Clausel. Cronoa becomes delighted by the description of a clever, brave, and unexpectedly cute young swordsman. Edgar admits he could not give Fiona a clear description because Ren was covered in wounds when they met. At that moment, Cronoa goes to see Fiona herself. Fiona greets Cronoa after a long separation and demonstrates that she can now run under her own power. The difficult rehabilitation made her stronger each day, so she never considered it a burden. Cronoa says she came to check Fiona's condition and enjoys simply speaking with her and Ulysses. Since she is already present, she asks to perform another examination. Cronoa uses magic to inspect Fiona's body. The examination confirms whether Ren's earlier miracle has continued to hold. She announces that Fiona should remain healthy without medicine and that her body is growing normally. She warns Fiona never to remove the protective necklace Cronoa gave her. Cronoa asks whether Fiona has tried on the Imperial Military Academy uniform. Fiona admits she began preparing early, though the final exam still remains. Cronoa praises how well the uniform suits her. Fiona, however, struggles to imagine herself as an ordinary student living among classmates. Fiona explains that she spent most of her life confined to her room and only reached the capital recently. Watching future classmates move confidently through the city makes her fear she will not find friends like herself. Cronoa reassures her that everything will be all right. She knows Fiona's gentle nature will draw people to her once she is given the chance. She tells Fiona to picture herself in uniform, eating, laughing, and spending carefree time with friends. Cronoa also asks permission to make a detour before returning. Cronoa urges Fiona to imagine having fun rather than living in fear. The future is no longer the painful prison that once defined her life. Fiona looks at herself and begins to accept the possibility of a normal school life. Hope replaces some of the anxiety in her expression. The conversation turns playful as Cronoa continues describing possible classmates and adventures. Fiona becomes increasingly embarrassed by the vivid picture. Cronoa teases her about meeting someone special at the academy. Fiona's imagination immediately runs too far ahead. Fiona begs her to stop because imagining herself with someone she has never even met is unbearably embarrassing. Cronoa enjoys the reaction. As night approaches, Cronoa says she must return. She mentions inspecting the Baldur Mountains because the Academy's original final exam site became unusable. She rejected the mountains as a replacement because of steep cliffs and the severe winter. Ulysses regrets that Fiona could not receive an earlier recommendation that might have exempted her from the first two exams. Cronoa says no one could have prioritized school while Fiona was still ill. She also reveals that she will leave Leomel at the end of the year, making this visit especially meaningful. Cronoa has accepted a year-long mission in the Holy Land to help rebuild part of the Silver Saint Palace. During her absence, the Academy's board of directors will hold the highest authority. Ulysses predicts the directors will waste their power on factional disputes. Cronoa agrees, then hurries away before missing her magic ship. She asks Ulysses to encourage Fiona for the final exam and promises to visit again after returning to Leomel. The Marquis welcomes her back whenever that day comes. Back in Clausel, Ren receives a formal letter at the Adventurers Guild. The staff greet him and confirm that a new request has specifically named him. The request asks Ren to escort a merchant group, according to an adventurer named Cal. The messenger herself steps forward and identifies Ren as the hero she came to hire. The merchant introduces herself and her partner, Matus. After joking that Ren has grown taller, Ren waits for the details of the assignment. They belong to a government-sanctioned trading company favored by nobles. The request came through a merchant with political connections, strong enough to send a personal messenger. Ren learns that the company is friendly with nobles in the hero faction, giving him mixed feelings. A complete round trip would last about a month, but the messenger sincerely wants his protection. She shows the route crossing the Baldur Mountains and says Ren may accompany them only one way. The roads become rough and monster-filled inside the range, where his strength would matter most. The route includes a hidden map area, known to contain steel-eating gargoyles and valuable materials. Ren cannot deny that the dangerous unexplored zone interests him. Heavy snowfall makes the timing reckless. Yet the merchants insist on traveling now. Missing their processing reservation with a famous blacksmith could cost them their government-sanctioned status and delay the delivery for years. They offer more than double the usual escort fee and promise a bonus for a safe arrival. Even with the generous reward, Ren remains hesitant. Ren apologizes and declines because he already has duties that prevent him from disappearing for a month. The merchant accepts the answer with disappointment. Matus is also taking another request and will not accompany her. She admits she hoped to recruit more trustworthy partners, but still has 2 weeks to find someone else. Ren feels bad that Cal vouched for him, but Cal tells him not to worry and offers a drink. Since Ren is still a child, he chooses juice instead of beer. At the same time, young candidates gather at a remote magic ship dock for the Imperial Military Academy's special class final exam. Fiona is among the students preparing to depart. The examinees board under strict supervision. Their destination remains secret even as the ship prepares for flight. Officials confirm that the candidates' equipment, furnaces, and safety inspections are ready. The commander orders the destination displayed. Some staff question whether the chosen environment is suitable in winter. They are told the academy director, magic tool craftsman, and previous survivors all confirmed the plan. Because secrecy prevents nobles from gaining an advantage, the location was hidden until departure. With the board of directors' approval, the examiners proceed despite their doubts. The magic ship rises and carries the candidates away from the capital. Fiona looks toward an unknown trial that will determine her future. The route display finally reveals the ship's destination. The name shocks those aware of the region's hazards. The final exam will take place in the Baldur Mountains. The winter range waits beneath layers of snow. Fiona studies the landscape as the ship approaches. The scale and isolation of the mountains make the Academy's test feel far more dangerous than expected. The candidates prepare their equipment while the ship descends. None of them know that conditions in the mountains are already worsening. In Clausel, village reports confirm adequate supplies but serious snow damage. Accumulation is crushing old houses, blocking roads, and forcing communities to request additional nights. Lazard decides help must be sent immediately. Ren volunteers, remembering how he once repaired damaged homes beside his father and wanting to contribute again. Lazard accepts his offer, and Ren is chosen for the relief expedition. Near sunset, however, an emergency report changes the mission completely. A smoke signal has been sighted from an old fortress deep in the Baldur Mountains. Someone trapped there is calling for rescue. The fortress serves adventurers as an emergency shelter and signal point. Lazard had been debating whether to give Ren a separate nomination request connected to it. The new request resembles the merchant escort job Ren refused. This time, the people in danger include the very party that tried to cross the mountains. Without fuel or supplies, those sheltering in the old fortress may freeze. Lazard originally discouraged the expedition, but one of the stranded adventurers is Ren's acquaintance. Before leaving, the adventurer warned that the merchants had ties to nobles in the hero faction. Clausel suspects the lack of support may be deliberate retaliation for the spring trial. Knights are already traveling near the mountains to aid snowbound villages, so Clausel will dispatch them toward the fortress too. The rescue also prevents the family from being dragged into another political accusation. Ren asks to join the group heading into the Baldur Mountains. Lazard dislikes relying on him again, but admits he expected the request. Lucia also wants Ren included because she knows he will go regardless of the danger. The household prepares for an urgent winter departure. Lazard allows Ren to travel with Clausel's knights, but forbids him from accepting the merchant's nomination request personally. His objective must remain rescue, not escorting them beyond the range. Taking the adventurer contract would obligate Ren to guard the merchants across the mountains, which is far too dangerous this winter. Ren thanks Lazard for drawing that boundary out of concern. Before departure, Lucia finds Ren and asks for his hand. She has prepared one final measure to protect him. Ren extends his hand as Lucia requested. She begins channeling holy magic into him. A sacred glow surrounds Ren's body. He recognizes the power as Lucia's protective magic. Lucia says the blessing lasts only a few hours, but even lightening Ren's burden makes her happy. She wanted to come, yet Lazard said a saintess would be of little help in this rescue. Ren promises to do her share of the work and carries the short sword she gave him. Lucia says she will also keep the charm he once gave her close. Lucia draws nearer and asks Ren for one more promise before he leaves. Her fear is impossible to hide. She tells him never to push himself too far, emphasizing every word. Ren agrees to return rather than treating the rescue as a sacrifice. The Clausel expedition departs under heavy winter clouds. Ren rides with the knights toward the Balder Mountains. Snow deepens as the group leaves the safer roads behind. Visibility falls and every breath becomes colder. The horses struggle through drifts while the riders search for the route to the old fortress. Progress becomes painfully slow. Wind tears across the exposed trail, forcing the knights to shield their faces. The mountains already look more hostile than the reports suggested. Ren keeps close to the formation and watches for monsters beneath the snow. The landscape hides both cliffs and moving threats. The expedition climbs higher, following faint markers nearly buried by the storm. Turning back would abandon everyone waiting at the fortress. At last, the group reaches the entrance to the Balder mountain range. The worst portion of the journey still lies ahead. A wide view of the Balder Mountains reveals endless white slopes and dark forests. The rescue party appears tiny against the frozen wilderness. The knights are shocked by how much more snow covers the mountain path than expected. Even the trees are bowed beneath its weight. With the road impassable, the group decides to establish a base and use magic or manual labor to advance. Ren proposes that they secure shelter before pushing toward the fortress. From their base, the rescuers can still see smoke rising from the fortress. The signal proves someone remains alive, but no one knows what disaster trapped such an experienced party. The group prepares heaters and discusses possible injuries among the stranded adventurers. Since protecting many people may have slowed them, the rescuers decide to advance carefully. The knights organize their formation around the heavy supplies and expect the march to take 2 or 3 days. Cal jokingly asks to stay near Ren instead of being paired with Matus. The expedition begins crossing the frozen path in an ordered line. Ren watches the terrain while the adults haul equipment behind him. They descend along a narrow route carved into the mountainside. The deep canyon below makes even a small mistake deadly. Snow and wind reduce visibility as the group continues. Ren remains alert for monsters hiding among the white slopes. The trail opens onto a vast ravine. The rescuers pause before entering the most dangerous section of the route. A knight explains that a dormant volcano lies beneath them, and magma once flowed freely here. Ren already knows that Asval's death filled the canyon bottom with lava and miasma. The expedition follows the cliff above the poisoned depths. The fortress finally appears in the distance beyond the ravine. As they draw closer, they realize the fort is under attack. Monsters swarm around the walls while smoke continues rising from inside. The rescuers are stunned by the sheer number of enemies surrounding the structure. Reaching the gate will require cutting through an entire horde. Inside the fortress, young examinees and injured adults struggle to hold the defenses. The walls offer temporary safety, but the monsters keep forcing their way closer. Ren and the Clausel Knights charge into the outer swarm. Their arrival draws part of the horde away from the exhausted defenders. Weapons and magic tear through the first wave. The rescuers fight to open a corridor toward the fortress entrance. Those inside notice unfamiliar warriors attacking the monsters and wonder who has come. Hope spreads when they realize a rescue force has arrived. The knights warn everyone not to lower their guard and continue advancing beside Ren. The situation remains dangerous despite the sudden reinforcements. Ren is shocked to see children near his own age fighting among the defenders. Their magic and trained skills reveal they are no ordinary travelers. A young swordswoman cuts through a monster with precise technique. Her ability stands out even among the academy candidates. Ren intercepts another creature before it reaches the students. His demon swords create space for the trapped group to regroup. The battle spreads across the ruined courtyard as both sides fight together. The newcomers and examinees gradually push the monsters back. Ren switches between offense and defense, using multiple demon swords to cover nearby fighters. The coordinated resistance finally begins thinning the horde. Another wave charges, but the students answer with magic while the Clausel Knights hold the front. The fortress defense becomes a united counterattack. Ren breaks through the center of the remaining monsters. His arrival gives the exhausted examinees the opening they desperately needed. The final enemies are struck down around the gate. After days of pressure, the fortress grounds at last begin to fall silent. One of the young fighters stares at Ren in surprise. He explains that he belongs to the group sent to rescue everyone. Ren checks the injured while the knights secure the entrance. The examinees slowly understand that their long isolation is finally ending. A dark-haired girl finishes off another monster near Ren. Her movements carry the discipline of someone trained far beyond her age. Ren is impressed by the girl's magic, and especially by her swordsmanship. She clearly played a central role in keeping the other examinees alive. The girl lowers her weapon as the immediate danger passes. Fatigue finally reaches her after the prolonged battle. Ren moves closer when she begins to lose balance. He catches her before she can collapse onto the snow. With the battle over, the girl apologizes for suddenly giving out. The tension that sustained her body has disappeared. She admits this was her first time fighting so many monsters at once. The moment she realized they had won, all strength left her legs. The girl thanks Ren for supporting her. He tells her not to dwell on it and helps her steady herself. After confirming she is unhurt, Ren says the other children described her as their leader. He asks why so many young nobles came to such a dangerous mountain together. Before answering, the girl confirms that Ren's party serves the Clausel family. Ren explains that Lazard ordered them to rescue stranded adventurers after the smoke signal appeared. The girl is visibly relieved to hear Clausel sent them. She asks permission to introduce herself properly. She states that her name is Fiona. Ren hears the name that has haunted his memories of the original story. Fiona identifies herself as the only daughter of Ulysses Ignart, Lord of Ibeheim. Ren realizes he has unexpectedly met the girl whose life he once saved. She repeats her formal introduction with noble composure. Ren hides his shock while trying not to reveal that he already knows who she is. Matus introduces himself as leader of the adventurer rescue team and asks why noble children are in the Baldur Mountains at all. Fiona explains that they have sheltered inside the fortress for several days. The group around her consists of academy examinees. The mountains were chosen as the final exam venue for the Imperial Military Academy's special class. Ren is stunned that the academy sent students into this environment. Matus awkwardly reacts to learning how many nobles are present and is scolded for speaking rudely. He explains that country adventurers often fear involvement with noble families. He admits they might receive rewards from grateful parents, but could also become trapped in political trouble. The adventurers promise not to interfere in noble matters and offer only to guide everyone down safely. Fiona accepts that arrangement. Ren then asks whether the students truly prepared themselves for a special class final exam. Fiona explains that the Imperial Military Academy is Leomel's most prestigious school, and only a select few enter its special class. Yet the examinees have been stranded for over a week, exhausting even their exceptional abilities. Monsters began appearing in unnatural numbers and seemed to gather along every route the group chose. Fiona suspects they may have been deliberately driven toward the fortress. Normally, the final exam requires completing a set course while hidden examiners judge strength, endurance, judgment, and teamwork. No examiner ever appeared, making the current situation impossible under proper procedure. A blizzard severe enough to trap experienced adventurers swept the mountains. Ren points out that even for an exam, officials could not reasonably remain hidden through such a disaster. Fiona confirms that the students also know the situation is abnormal. With nobles from several countries present, everyone fears that a powerful party may be attacking them from behind the scenes. Ren says the rescue team is also searching for its missing adventurers. Fiona explains those adults reached the fortress earlier and helped the examinees shelter safely. She leads the rescuers deeper into the fort. The interior is crowded with exhausted students and wounded adventurers. Ren recognizes of the merchant escort party among those lying inside. Their condition is far worse than he expected. He asks what happened and learns many cannot even stand. The illness appears to affect the entire group rather than a few battle injuries. Fiona says the examinees have raised the recent smoke signals. Someone with medical knowledge believes magical power inside the adults' bodies has swollen abnormally. The symptoms resemble vessel fracture, where incompatible magic acts like poison and erodes the body. The condition usually affects children born with enormous magical reserves, making it strange among adult adventurers. Fortunately, the swelling is already calming and may disappear with rest. Ren and the knights decide to verify the diagnosis before planning everyone's descent. Ren privately realizes he must rely on Clausel's resources once again. Treating and transporting this many people will require more than an adventurer's strength. The group prepares to sleep inside the fort, while the men organize supplies and patience. Some adventurers joke about demanding a reward after surviving the trouble. Others immediately tell them not to make shameless comments in front of noble children during a crisis. The humor briefly eases the tension. Ren's summoned swords draw curious looks from the examinees. Their unusual forms make it obvious his power is not ordinary swordsmanship. He clarifies that the demon swords are not servants under his command. Fiona assures him she has been watching carefully and understands. Fiona asks to speak with Ren alone about something important. Her companions excuse themselves and leave the two together. She begins by thanking him for helping during the battle. Ren answers as an adventurer who was simply glad to save someone. Fiona gathers the courage to introduce herself more personally. Ren senses she is about to ask about the savior she has been searching for. Outside their conversation, the emergency continues. The fortress must still shelter dozens of people, while the storm cuts off the mountain. Many examinees resist accepting help because they believe they must finish the exam by their own power. Fiona understands their pride, but recognizes that survival matters more than rules. Ren and the adults note that the special exam should have sealed the entire venue from outsiders and informed the territorial ruler. Neither safeguard existed, while adventurers were already present before the exam began. They consider deliberate third-party involvement, but reject obvious suspects. The royal family would gain little, and provoking both Clausel and Marquis Ignart would be politically reckless. Cronoa's recent departure from Liamel makes an accident more plausible, yet the adults still decide to force unwilling examinees down once possible. Seriously injured students must remain until reinforcements arrive. Fiona's unusual skill is already treating the wounded. Ren is amazed that the girl he saved now possesses the ability to protect others. Ren marvels at meeting Fiona in such an unlikely place, while she believes he is merely a capable adventurer. He postpones revealing himself because the timing feels wrong. Matus agrees that Ren and Fiona should wait until everyone is safely off the mountain before speaking privately. Ren accepts the advice. A note in Ren's bag explains how to use the magic tool Lucia gave him. He asks for help completing the preparations. When Ren holds the tool, hidden writing becomes visible. Lucia's instructions reveal a communication function he had not understood. Ren activates the device and establishes contact with Clausel. He reports the fortress's situation and receives confirmation that reinforcements will be sent. After the message, Ren finally allows himself a brief rest. Snow continues falling beyond the fortress wall. At Clausel, Lucia stands in the cold night air despite warnings that she may catch a cold. She says the cool wind feels pleasant while waiting for news. An attendant asks whether Lucia is worried about Ren. Lucia insists she is not nearly as anxious as everyone assumes. She says no one in the world understands Ren's true strength better than she does. Her confidence makes the question seem foolish, though she still waits outside for his return. The attendant offers tea before bed, and Lucia finally agrees to go inside. The quiet household continues following reports from the mountains. A servant notices the outfit Ren gave Lucia laid out late at night. Lucia becomes flustered and insists there is no deeper meaning behind it. The servant realizes Lucia felt lonely and wanted something connected to Ren nearby. Lucia cannot convincingly deny it. Alone again, Lucia looks at the gift and thinks about the promise that Ren will return. Her composure softens into honest longing. At the fortress, the rescued adventurers thank Clausel's party. Matus wants to descend first, but the knights advise waiting for reinforcement because the injured remain unstable. Kai's condition is poor, yet his partner insists on going with the knights to call for help. The adults leave guarding the examinees to those staying behind. A small group prepares for the dangerous descent. They carry only essential equipment, so they can move quickly through the snow. The departing knights and adventurers vanish into the storm. Everyone inside the fort watches, knowing their survival depends on the message reaching Clausel. Those remaining begin processing supplies and repairing equipment. The craftsmen praise the available materials and estimate they can keep working for another month if necessary. Ren helps until exhaustion catches up with him. The long march, battle, and rescue planning finally begin wearing down his body. Fiona approaches and apologizes, but Ren insists he should be the one apologizing for delaying their private conversation. Both become awkward. She explains that her savior is in Clausel and asks whether Ren has ever met him. She was drawn to Ren because he seems connected to the family that helped her. Fiona considered asking the knights, but everyone looked too busy. She also feels Ren appears close in age to the boy who saved her. Embarrassed, Fiona tells him to forget everything she said because they promise not to interfere in each other's affairs. Ren says he does not really mind. Even with the opening before him, Ren cannot reveal the truth. He watches Fiona leave, frustrated that he failed to tell her again. Night settles over the fortress amid heavy snowfall. Exhausted survivors fall asleep while the storm continues outside. The chapter closes on the isolated mountain shelter and the uncertain route home. Everyone waits for reinforcements to reach them. Sometime later, the season has changed, and a hot day replaces the mountain cold. Ren walks through town beneath the summer sun. The heat makes him consider stopping somewhere on the way back. He turns toward the Adventurers Guild. As Ren approaches the guild, someone inside thinks they just saw the young hero's face pass by. A new encounter is about to begin. Inside the fortress, Ren continues taking turns on watch while the others sleep. The night remains quiet despite the storm beyond the walls. Fiona approaches during his shift, carrying supplies for a warm drink. She hesitates before joining him. When the guard shift changes, Ren says he wants something warm before sleeping. Fiona offers to prepare tea for both of them. They move to a small room where the examinees keep food and utensils. The simple task gives them a rare moment away from the crisis. Fiona studies Ren's face and realizes he resembles the boy who appeared in her dreams and memories. The recognition unsettles her. Ren notices her staring and asks what is wrong. Fiona denies anything serious, then invites him to share the tea she was already preparing. Fiona carefully measures the leaves and heats the water. Ren watches how seriously she treats the modest preparation. The tea begins steeping in the pot. The room fills with a gentle fragrance that contrasts with the frozen fortress outside. Fiona brings out a small selection of ingredients and medicine supplies. Ren's attention is drawn to the unfamiliar materials. She explains that she wanted to look through the ingredients and asks whether Ren minds adding some of them. She is unsure whether the flavor will suit him. Ren agrees, and Fiona completes the mixture. Her practiced movements show that tea once played an important role in her treatment. They taste the finished drink and find it unexpectedly delicious. Ren openly praises Fiona's skill. Fiona is surprised that Ren brews tea even better than she does. She explains that when she was bedridden, a maid taught her because her medicine often had to be prepared as tea. Moving her body was difficult, but Fiona repeatedly practiced making the medicinal drink herself. No matter how hard she tried at first, the tea tasted terrible. Ren notes that tea preparation is more complicated than it appears. Fiona confirms that medicine made from monster materials worked better when brewed than when swallowed with water. Ren guesses that tea softened the medicine's bitterness. Fiona agrees and says the change made treatment much easier for her to endure. Their conversation becomes comfortable as they compare small experiences from village life and noble treatment. Neither notices how long they have been talking. Fiona smiles over her cup, enjoying an ordinary conversation she once believed impossible. Ren feels equally at ease. A quiet pause falls between them. The warmth of the tea and the dim room make the dangerous mountain feel briefly distant. Afterward, Fiona wonders why speaking with Ren felt so easy. The familiarity strengthens her suspicion that he may be connected to her savior. Ren reflects on her statement that her medicine used monster materials. He was never told that the treatment involved such ingredients. The detail aligns too closely with the power he used when saving Fiona. Ren begins connecting the girl before him with the child from his hidden past. He tries to dismiss it as coincidence, but Fiona notices his expression and asks whether something is wrong. Ren gathers his courage and asks permission to pose a single question. The answer may confirm both of their suspicions. Before the conversation can continue, movement and voices erupt outside. The arrival of new people interrupts the private moment. The knights who descended the mountain return with reinforcements. Their successful arrival means the fortress can finally organize a safe evacuation. The merchants and most patients have recovered enough to travel, and everyone is told to rest one final day. Ren asks where Matus has gone. They learn that Matus left only a message saying Kai had not recovered properly, then disappeared after reaching the mountain's foot. The others criticize his irresponsible behavior. Although Matus abandoned the expedition once his partner was safe, the remaining adventurers promise to accompany the examinees to the end. They still owe Ren for saving the younger group during the gargoyle incident. The fortress becomes busy with preparations for departure. Supplies are divided, and the weakest travelers are assigned to the strongest escorts. Examinees are ordered to leave most belongings behind or entrust them to adults so everyone can move lightly through the snow. Ren suddenly feels a lukewarm wind pass him. The stranded party is eager to return home, but one adventurer says monsters alone would not have reduced them to such a state. The unnatural warmth adds another troubling sign. No examiner has appeared despite the students' prolonged suffering. Ahead, the group discovers a hanging bridge crossing a deep gorge. The travelers stop before the swaying structure and assess the ropes. Snow and ice have made the crossing more dangerous than usual. Adults order everyone to grip the ropes or another person's clothing. Some tease the special class candidates for looking afraid of a mere bridge. The first members begin crossing one at a time. The bridge creaks beneath the combined weight of people and supplies. Fiona hesitates near the entrance, and Ren offers support. Falling from this height would be fatal regardless of academy talent. Ren steps onto the bridge beside her and keeps his pace slow. The gorge yawns beneath them while the wind pulls at the ropes. Someone suggests Fiona should ask a knight for help instead, but she chooses Ren. He agrees to stay beside her through the crossing. Fiona asks whether she may hold Ren's hand. Her fear is obvious despite her attempt to speak formally. Ren realizes she intended to ask him from the beginning. He extends his hand and lets her grip it tightly. Together they move onto the narrow bridge. Fiona focuses on Ren rather than looking into the gorge. Ren asks whether she is all right because she appears more frightened than expected. Fiona says she can manage because he is protecting her. She explains that most of her life was spent sleeping and waking without knowing whether she would survive the next day. That experience changed what fear means to her. After escaping such constant illness, Fiona believes very little remains that can truly terrify her. Even so, she does not release Ren's hand. The same unnatural warm wind surrounds them again. Ren realizes the air is not behaving like ordinary mountain weather. He senses that something serious is beginning and warns the others. The bridge starts trembling beneath their feet. A violent force rises from below the gorge. Ren shouts that something is coming from underneath them. The canyon erupts with heat and debris. The bridge whips violently as people cling to the ropes. Ren pulls Fiona close and shields her from the first blast. The formation on the bridge breaks apart. Lava and fiery wind surge through the ravine. Everyone scrambles toward whichever side of the bridge is closest. The disaster separates the travelers before they can regroup. Ren and Fiona are caught in the middle of the chaos. Flames begin scorching the frozen boulder mountains. The contrast confirms that a massive volcanic disturbance has awakened beneath them. The mountainside cracks and ejects burning stones. Snow instantly turns to steam around the fleeing party. Ren recognizes that this is no normal fire. Its heat and behavior resemble the power associated with Asval and the ancient volcano. The examinees panic and ask whether the eruption is part of the final exam. Adults order them to run because stopping will mean death. Monsters flee the spreading lava and crash into the escape route. The travelers must fight even while the mountain collapses around them. Ren cuts down a creature blocking the bridge exit. Behind him, Fiona uses magic to protect the people nearest her. More monsters rush from the burning forest. The chaotic herd makes it impossible for the entire group to move together. Ren and the knights form a defensive line long enough for the students to pass. The heat continues rising behind them. A powerful monster breaks through and attacks the scattered examinees. Ren changes direction to intercept it. Fiona becomes isolated during the confusion. Several creatures notice her magical presence and turn toward her. Ren realizes the monsters are specifically aiming for Fiona. He forces his way through the herd to reach her. A beast lunges before Ren can close the distance. Fiona raises her weapon and prepares to defend herself. Her strike slows the monster but does not stop the others. Ren summons another demon sword while running. Fiona calls to the approaching adventurer and asks for his blade or assistance. Ren answers without revealing the panic he feels. He reaches Fiona and blocks the next attack. The two stand back to back against the surrounding monsters. Ren summons a demon sword suited to the emergency and cuts open a route. Fiona follows closely behind him. Before moving, Ren promises that he will return the borrowed weapon and bring her safely through the disaster. The vow steadies Fiona. They charge through the opening while monsters pursue. Ren keeps himself between Fiona and every attack. A collapsing tree and burning debris block the original path. Ren searches for another way toward the fortress. Fiona uses magic to clear part of the obstruction, allowing them to continue. The ground shakes with another eruption. A fresh surge of lava cuts off the rest of the group. Ren and Fiona are forced toward a separate ridge. Ren tells Fiona not to let go no matter what happens. He promises to pull her up as quickly as possible if she slips. They climb across unstable rock while ash and sparks fill the air. The route behind them disappears under falling debris. From higher ground, Ren sees that most of the others reached safety. He shouts for everyone to hurry and pull up those still behind. The Balder Mountains erupt fully, confirming Ignart's worst fears. The ancient volcanic region has awakened far earlier than Ren expected. Ren and Fiona are thrown away from the main rescue group by the shockwave. Smoke conceals their location. When the shaking finally eases, Ren checks Fiona for injuries. The two are alone in an unfamiliar section of the mountain. They find temporary shelter among the rocks and assess the surrounding lava flows. Returning by the same route is impossible. Ren asks whether Fiona is all right. Both realize that only the two of them remain together, separated from everyone else. They retreat toward the fortress and apologize for the forced detour. Fiona blames herself, but Ren insists the eruption was not her fault. Ren believes the others are probably safe because the lava followed the terrain away from their route. Still, he and Fiona must find another descent before their shelter is engulfed. The closest alternate path leads toward the former territory of Viscount Givens. It will take much longer than reaching Clausel, while other routes are even more troublesome. Fiona asks what happened to Gibbons's land after his disappearance. Ren explains that the royal family took control, which should make the route politically safe. Ren remains cautious because too many strange events have occurred in succession. Fiona notes that neither the hero faction nor the royal family seems to gain anything from endangering nobles from every side. They wonder whether an outside force is responsible. The possibility of people plotting to revive the Demon King becomes impossible to dismiss. Ren says searching for the culprit must wait because the lava is still moving. The glowing night gives them light, and Fiona quickly sorts her belongings before they continue. The pair leave the damaged shelter and begin following the longer path. Ren carries most of the weight so Fiona can conserve strength. Fiona apologizes for slowing him, but Ren says it is no problem at all. He refuses to let her treat survival as a burden. They travel until exhaustion forces another stop. Ren prepares a small, hidden campsite away from the lava's direction. Fiona helps gather what they need, while Ren secures the surroundings. The quiet teamwork feels strangely domestic after the chaos. Night deepens over their isolated camp. Both sleep lightly, aware that the mountain may shift again. At dawn, Fiona wakes first and begins preparing breakfast. She wants to repay Ren for protecting her. She greets Ren and apologizes for her messy hair, saying the food is almost ready. Ren is more concerned that she is overworking herself. Fiona calls it a simple meal, but Ren says it is more than enough. He decides not to mention her swaying posture because the embarrassment might make her push even harder. They eat together before resuming the descent. Fiona appears happier simply sharing an ordinary morning with someone her own age. Their eyes meet repeatedly during breakfast. Ren wonders why the small exchange feels so awkward. Fiona blurts out that she noticed it too. Both become flustered by the admission. They hurriedly finish the meal and prepare to move, pretending the strange tension never happened. The unspoken familiarity between them continues to grow. The following morning, Fiona apologizes for dozing off while Ren kept watch. He reassures her that the night passed quietly, and no monsters approached their camp. Fiona explains that she wanted to take the next watch because Ren had guarded them the night before. Ren tells her not to worry, but she insists she can remain awake. Trying to be helpful, Fiona serves tea she learned to make from the Ignart household servants. Ren takes one sip and discovers that it is unbelievably bitter. Even while struggling with the taste, Ren smiles and calls the tea delicious. Fiona immediately notices his twitching eyebrow and accuses him of lying just to spare her feelings. They estimate that reaching the foot of the mountain will take about 2 more days. Ren praises Fiona's courage, especially how calm she remained while they were surrounded by flames on the suspension bridge. Fiona says her fearlessness comes from surviving something far worse. Ren remembers the symptoms he once studied in the game's lore and asks whether she suffered from a condition similar to a vessel fracture. Fiona confirms it directly. She was afflicted with vessel fracture, a devastating disorder that prevented her body from handling mana normally. Her case was so severe that famous healers and magic tool craftsmen all declared recovery impossible. None of them had ever encountered another patient like her. Ren finally understands the necklace around her neck. It is an exorcism necklace, a rare magic tool that suppresses mana and reduces the strain placed on her fragile body. As Fiona continues, Ren imagines the years she spent confined to bed, surrounded by attendants and treatments that offered almost no hope. Fiona remembers the tiny room that became her entire world. Shelves packed with medical books, rows of potions and tools, and a chair she could barely sit in whenever her body allowed it. For most of her childhood, that room was everything she knew. Looking out over the snowy mountains now, she admits that her younger self would have considered this journey an impossible dream. One day, her father and the servants suddenly began acting distant and strangely cold. Fiona assumed the doctor had finally told them she did not have much longer to live. She later learned the truth. Her family had secretly given her a new medicine made from a chief wolf, then hidden their anxiety while praying that it would work. While Fiona slept, the entire household waited in silence. Her father remained nearby, unable to hide the fear that this final treatment might fail as well. The long night passed with Fiona motionless in bed, tears gathering in the eyes of those who could do nothing except wait. Then, one morning, Fiona opened her eyes and sensed that something inside her body had changed. She tried to move too quickly, rolled from the bed, and struck her head on the floor. The swelling reached her cheeks, but even the pain felt miraculous because she could finally feel and move freely. At first, all Fiona could do was crawl awkwardly across the carpet. She thought she looked pathetic, yet every small movement proved that the impossible recovery had begun. She dragged herself toward the bright window, staring at the outside world she had only watched from bed for years. The moment she realized the treatment had truly worked, Fiona began to cry. For the first time, tears came from happiness rather than fear or frustration. Compared with those helpless years, the dangers of the mountain no longer seemed terrifying to her. Simply being able to walk through the snow is already a gift. Ren tells her that reaching the point where she can walk normally must have required enormous effort. Fiona smiles, thinking that after they descend, she may finally be able to keep moving forward. Ren promises to get Fiona down the mountain and return her safely home. His uncomplicated kindness leaves her visibly moved, even though he treats the promise as the obvious thing to do. Fiona suddenly loses her balance and nearly collapses. Ren catches the movement and asks whether she is all right, but she quickly insists that nothing is wrong. That night, Fiona tells Ren to sleep first while she takes the watch. She settles beside the campfire and assures him that she can stay awake. Alone with her thoughts, Fiona curls up against the cold and wonders why her body has suddenly begun feeling strange again. Ren sleeps nearby as the moon hangs over the mountains. Fiona quietly endures the discomfort rather than waking him. By morning, the snowfall has weakened, allowing Ren and Fiona to continue their descent through the white landscape. They soon discover a vast river of molten lava cutting across the route below them. The path they intended to use is completely blocked. Ren studies the blazing current and admits that they cannot cross it by ordinary means. Fiona suggests forcing a path with her magic so they can reach the former Given's territory on the other side. She steps forward and gathers mana. A massive surge of ice crashes into the lava, filling the mountainside with steam and shattered frost. Fiona continues pouring power into the spell, building layer after layer of ice over the molten surface. For a moment, the frozen mass appears to hold. Then the lava erupts through it, blasting the newly formed path apart. Ren pulls Fiona back from the explosion. He recognizes the same unnatural mana that surrounded the suspension bridge, proving that the volcanic activity is being influenced by something far beyond normal weather. With the main route useless, Ren concludes that only one option remains. They will have to use a hidden path that was never meant for ordinary travelers. The secret route is extremely dangerous and inhabited by special monsters, but Fiona agrees without hesitation. Remaining beside the lava would be even worse. As they move on, Ren reflects that Baldur Mountain was never this hostile in the original game. He then asks Fiona a question that has been bothering him since the fort. Ren asks what kind of power she used to treat the people who collapsed at the fort. Fiona hesitates, realizing he noticed far more than she expected. Ren warns her never to reveal the skill carelessly. Fiona says her father gave the same order, and apologizes for keeping it secret from him. In addition to ice magic, Fiona can interfere directly with another person's mana. She can adjust its flow, suppress dangerous reactions, and restore balance inside someone else's body. That ability is what allowed her own vessel fracture to be treated. Although she cannot use the skill on herself, Fiona admits that this limitation still frightens her. Ren realizes how rare and politically valuable her power is. The flames that targeted her and the elaborate plot surrounding the academy exam could only have been arranged by someone with great authority and knowledge. He asks what anyone would gain from Fiona's death. One possibility is throwing Leomel into chaos and pushing Marquis Ulysses Ignart toward the ruthless role he played in the game's original story. In that version of events, Ulysses became a terrifying final enemy after drawing on the Demon Lord's power and the dragon Asval. Ren suspects a faction seeking the Demon King's revival may be manipulating everything. Yet simply killing Fiona cannot be the entire objective, because the conspirators had many easier opportunities. The sickness among the merchants and adventurers at the fort must also have served a larger purpose. Ren theorizes that Fiona was deliberately held at the fort as bait, forcing rescue parties and influential nobles into the mountains. However, the collapse of the stronghold may have disrupted the original plan. The more Ren examines the events, the more he feels something is missing. He finally tells Fiona that his previous conclusion was wrong, and that he needs to explain what he has realized. Before he can continue, a familiar presence appears among the rocks ahead. Ren and Fiona stop as someone approaches through the snow. Fiona bends forward, exhausted by another wave of pain. Ren asks if she can stand, but the stranger's arrival forces both of them to remain alert. A white-haired adventurer emerges and casually says that this is where they have been hiding. He complains that finding them took far more effort than expected. He offers to guide the pair somewhere safe, presenting himself as a late-arriving rescuer. Ren does not move. Instead, he wonders why this man is here at all and why his appearance feels perfectly timed. Fiona realizes Ren's suspicions were correct. Ren tells her to stay beside him while the adventurer asks what is wrong. Ren reaches for his weapon and asks whether he truly needs to explain the deception. The adventurer feigns confusion, asking if Ren is merely angry because the rescue arrived late. His relaxed smile only confirms Ren's doubts. Ren points out how convenient it is that a government-sanctioned merchant and an academy messenger were both involved. He asks whether the messenger was one of the man's allies. He then states the real plan: kill both Ren and Fiona in Baldur Mountain, and make the deaths appear to be the work of the hero faction. Their deaths would ignite conflict between Clausel and Ignart, distract attention from the Given scandal, and destabilize every major faction in Liamel. Ren demands to know how the conspirators intended to profit from the chaos. The adventurer lowers his head in silence, abandoning the friendly expression he used as a disguise. When he looks up again, his face has become cold and predatory. He admits that Ren is far smarter than he expected. Even though the scheme has been exposed, the man says nothing has changed. He still intends to complete the mission here. Ren notes that the conspirator also wanted to test his hidden strength. The steel-eating gargoyles were part of that test, which is why the man never attacked Ren from behind during the earlier fight. The adventurer admits his curiosity. He waited to see what Ren could do and deliberately dragged him deeper into the operation, although several parts of the plan failed. Originally, his partner was supposed to kill Fiona before the rescue party arrived, while he cornered Ren on the suspension bridge. The fort's collapse forced them to improvise. Ren points out one more mistake. The man did not return to the mountains alone. A second armored adventurer steps into view. The first man laughs and admits that Ren noticed his companion as well. The armored man explains that they planned to kill the examinees immediately. However, the moment he saw Fiona, his body froze under the influence of her strange power, forcing them to take a detour. He demands to know what Fiona's ability truly is. Ren refuses, saying the answer is something they will have to discover for themselves. Ren reveals what he has already seen on both men, the engraved mark of the Demon King cult. The cultists' concealed markings become visible, confirming that the two adventurers have been serving the Demon King's followers all along. Fiona recoils as she realizes the men are allied with the Demon King. Ren calmly tells her that they are exactly the enemies he suspected. Ren explains that the cult's power reacted violently to Fiona. Kai was affected first, then the corrupted mana spread through the fort and caused dozens of people to collapse. Matus remained conscious, only because his equipment carried strong magical resistance. Ren also connects the flames near the bridge to the cult's power, though he still cannot explain how two men could influence an entire mountain. The cultists decide they need Ren and Fiona alive for the moment. One orders Kai not to kill either target, revealing that their bodies or powers are still required. Ren steps in front of Fiona and tells her to remain behind him. With no route left to escape, he prepares to fight both men. He studies their stances and realizes they came fully prepared. Their confidence, despite facing him together, means they possess abilities he has not yet seen. The two cultists advance at once, surrounding Ren from opposite sides. Ren intercepts the first assault, but their coordinated blades force him immediately onto the defensive. With the volcanic terrain collapsing around them, Ren realizes there is nowhere left to run. He must defeat both opponents before the mountain itself traps them. A fresh shockwave runs through the ground as the eruption intensifies. The cultists barely react, keeping their attention fixed on Ren. Behind him, Fiona suddenly clutches her chest. Her mana begins surging out of control as the mountain's corrupted power closes in. Ren notices Fiona dropping to her knees and calls her name, but the enemy uses the distraction to press forward. Fiona gasps that the sensation resembles vessel fracture, even though the illness should have been cured. Every part of her body is suddenly losing strength. The mountainside convulses violently, sending rock and fire bursting upward around the fighters. Another eruption tears through the peaks. Ren and the cultists pause only long enough to avoid the falling debris. Kai launches himself through the smoke and brings his weapon down on Ren with crushing force. Matus apologizes with a mocking smile, saying the situation leaves no room for him to go easy. Ren blocks a rapid series of strikes, but the combined pressure drives him back across the snow. Kai raises his blade and declares that they should end the fight quickly. His next attack explodes into a spinning barrage, filling the space around Ren with intersecting slashes. Ren summons multiple weapons to meet the assault, creating a storm of clashing steel between them. He calls forth the Demon Sword of Shields. A layered magical barrier expands in front of him and catches the cultists' attacks. The cultists continue striking the barrier without slowing. Matus warns Ren that a shield like this will not protect him forever. Kai pours even more power into his weapon, and cracks spread across the summoned barrier. The Demon's Sword of Shields finally shatters. Ren's is exposed as glittering fragments scatter through the air. Kai raises his sword and asks whether Ren has ever seen a hero's technique before. Matus calls him Mr. Hero as a vast magic formation opens overhead. Kai unleashes the holy sword technique known as Lightfall. Countless beams descend from the formation and rain toward Ren. Ren recognizes the danger immediately. Lightfall automatically targets enemies and deals continuous holy damage, proving that Kai's skill exceeds that of an ordinary swordmaster. Ren repeatedly reinforces the barrier while shielding Fiona from Lightfall. Kai is surprised that he can summon the same defense so many times in succession, but the strain is clearly wearing Ren down. The cultists close in as Ren kneels beside the weakened Fiona. Kai extends his sword and calmly tells Ren that it is time for him to sleep. Before the finishing blow can land, an enormous eruption of flame bursts between them. Kai stares in disbelief as the entire battlefield is swallowed by fire. The flames twist upward into a colossal tornado, separating Ren from both cultists and tearing through the snowy mountainside. The violent current catches one of the attackers and hurls him through the air. His partner shouts Kai's name as the blaze scatters their formation. At the center of the inferno, the fire compresses into a dense, dark sphere. The surrounding flames continue circling it like a raging storm. Kai calls the phenomenon impossible. Ren seizes the opening, lifts Fiona into his arms, and races away before the cultists can recover. Ren carries Fiona through the chaos, only to find another towering wall of flame rising directly in their path. He shouts for it to stop as the fire closes around them. Walls of fire continue erupting one after another, trapping everyone inside a shifting corridor. One cultist demands to know who in the world is controlling the flames. Even the attackers are forced to crouch beneath the overwhelming heat. The blaze bends and moves with deliberate precision, rather than behaving like a natural eruption. Matus realizes that an enormous amount of mana is manipulating the fire. The scale of the power is far beyond anything he believed a human could control. Within the darkness above the flames, the silhouette of a gigantic dragon briefly appears. The sight makes the cultist realize that the source cannot be an ordinary spell. Ren continues carrying the unconscious Fiona while the enemy watches her closely. His expression changes as he finally connects the strange fire to the girl in Ren's arms. The cultist concludes that Fiona is the reason the monsters fled in terror and why everyone's mana at the fort went out of control. Her presence has been affecting the entire mountain. As the fire presses around him, he stares at Fiona and mutters that the woman herself is the key to everything happening here. A black power rises through the inferno, evoking the legendary force connected to the Demon King and the ancient heroes. The uncontrolled flames burst outward from the mountain in a devastating spiral, blasting rock and snow across the surrounding peaks. A serpent-like wave of fire pursues Ren as he runs with Fiona in his arms. He barely stays ahead of the burning current. Ren leaps through a narrow opening while the fire coils around them from both sides. Behind him, one of the cultists shouts in alarm. Ren realizes that the flames are once again aiming directly for Fiona. She remains unconscious, breathing weakly while the heat draws closer. The exorcism necklace at Fiona's throat begins to crack. Ren reaches toward it as the magic tool breaks apart under the pressure of her surging mana. While holding Fiona, Ren suddenly hears an unfamiliar voice echoing within the deepest part of his mind. The presence feels ancient and impossibly powerful. The exorcism necklace finally shatters completely. Fiona cries out as the last restraint on her mana disappears. Fiona's body becomes surrounded by glittering particles of light. Ren watches in shock as the magical radiance engulfs the girl in his arms. The particles spread across the dark sky while Ren continues holding Fiona. A fresh stream of flame curls toward them before he can understand what changed. The raging fire strikes with tremendous force and sweeps Ren and Fiona away together. One of the cultists sees them vanish into the blaze and shouts for Lady Ignart, unable to follow through the burning torrent. The flames collide and coil into multiple spirals, carrying Ren and Fiona deeper into the mountain. A barrier forms inside the swirling fire, but the pressure crushes it. Crystalline fragments scatter as the vortex continues dragging them onward. Still protecting Fiona, Ren wonders why the flames are taking her instead of killing her. Through the inferno, he notices that they are being carried towards somewhere beyond the battlefield. The fire deposits Ren near the hidden route they originally intended to find. The giant rock sealing its entrance has already crumbled away. Beyond the broken entrance, Ren discovers a long stone staircase descending into the mountain. The secret passage has finally been revealed. Ren carries Fiona down the seemingly endless stairs, while a small trail of flame follows along the wall behind them. Looking back at the fading fire, Ren realizes it truly guided them to this place. The thought leaves him even more uncertain about the power controlling it. A volume interlude marks the end of the current stage of Ren's journey and foreshadows the dangerous destination waiting at the end of the newly opened passage. Inside the star agate subterranean path, Ren recognizes scenery identical to the Legend of the Seven Heroes. According to the game, a steel-eating gargoyle should be waiting farther ahead. Ren advances through the dark crystalline cavern, carrying Fiona, while carefully watching for the monster he remembers. Deep inside the passage, an immense crystal formation floats above a mound of rock, surrounded by black flames and an unnatural magical presence. Ren finds Fiona encased at the center of a blooming mass of crystal. The structure closes around her body like a gigantic frozen flower. He shouts Fiona's name and rushes toward her. A strange crystal object lies between them, pulsing with power. A dark dragon-shaped monster emerges from the cavern. Ren stares at it and wonders whether it could be the creature he remembers. The monster is indeed a steel-eating gargoyle. However, it is already badly damaged, with black flames burning across its body. Ren realizes the gargoyle may have been defeated by the same mysterious flames that brought him here. The wounded creature still tries to stand between him and the crystal. Seeing that the gargoyle is terrified rather than simply hostile, Ren apologizes. He says ending its suffering is the only help he can offer before raising a demon sword. Ren inspects his available demon swords and selects one suited to the situation. The weapon's magical abilities appear before him as he prepares to strike. Ren attacks the crystal formation, but an elaborate black pattern spreads across it and stops his blade. A voice inside his head says that it has been waiting. The voice declares that it has waited for the one who awakened its power, and calls Fiona, the black girl, responsible for its return. Ren realizes the flames and the voice belong to a being whose sanity was stolen by the Demon King and later restrained by the Seven Heroes. The awakened presence admits that it remembers nothing, not its identity, its purpose, or even why it exists in this place. Ren recalls the game's history. A faction from the Legend of the Seven Heroes once attempted to resurrect Asval by using the dragon's magic stone. Looking at the crystal and the fire before him, Ren understands what the forgotten being must be. He addresses the presence directly, identifying it as Asval, the proud red dragon. Ren remembers Asval as the leader of the fire dragons, a warrior who lives for battle and constantly hungers for a powerful opponent. The crystal is Asval's magic stone. Ren connects the attack on the suspension bridge and the sudden awakening of the dormant volcano to the dragon's approaching resurrection. Ren still cannot explain why Fiona triggered it. She performed no resurrection ritual, yet her rare power amplified Asval's mana far beyond its dormant state. Asval says it exists to defeat the Demon King, and then await an even stronger challenger. Ren urgently tells the dragon to stop, because the Demon King is already dead. Ren explains that the hero Ruin defeated both Asval and the Demon King long ago. Asval rejects the claim and insists that it is not dead. Because Asval's consciousness has not fully returned, Ren decides to seize the magic stone before the dragon completes its awakening. Ren charges toward the crystal and launches an attack, trying to destroy the core before the surrounding flames can stop him. The strike detonates against the awakening power. The shockwave blasts through the cavern and sends one of the nearby cultists coughing as black fire gathers into a massive shape. The flames compress into a gigantic sphere, drawing heat and mana from the entire mountain toward the forming dragon. Asval commands its opponent to carry the flame into his very soul. The burning mass begins carving out the body of the legendary beast. Enormous wings unfold from the fire as the dragon's physical form takes shape above the cavern. Ren looks up at the fully emerging creature and realizes that the King of Flames now stands before him. A towering pillar of black fire descends around Asval, shaking the underground chamber and filling every passage with heat. Ren watches in alarm as the dragon's presence overwhelms the cavern, and the last fragments of its sealed form break away. Burning scales lock into place across Asval's enormous body. Flames stream between the armored plates without harming the dragon. Asval rises to its full height, revealing the immense form of the resurrected red dragon. The dragon declares that only a flame greater than its own could ever destroy it. Wrapped in the mountain's fire, Asval boasts that the blaze cannot consume its body. Asval opens its jaws and releases a deafening roar, announcing its return to the world. The red dragon spreads its wings over Ren and the crystal chamber, preparing to test the opponent standing before it. Asval swings its massive body and launches a crushing attack through the sea of flames. At the final instant, a huge crystal barrier erupts around Ren and catches the dragon's strike, leaving the confrontation unresolved.